That's so dark.
Okay, Lars. We're here. I think the light's about right. This is kind of glary there. Let's do that. It gets it out of the way.
All right.
I still see everything. So, okay. Sound check. I hope I have it on the correct microphone now. So let me know how the sound sounds, somebody. Breaker 19, breaker 19. How do you hear me? 5 by 5? Is there sound? Okay.
Sounds good. Thanks, Gold Panner.
Wow, you wouldn't believe how long it takes for those comments to show up at this end. It's bizarre. Okay, good. We apparently have the right camera and the right microphone going. Oh, dearie, dearie, dearie.
Cool.
You're in the dark.
Yeah, I know. It was. There you go. That's a little better.
Yeah, still. And turn it on. This.
Get a little glare there.
Not much. Who cares?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. So here we go. We were just talking about something else, so got to get my mind all rearranged for a second. As you can see, I've had a very busy and physical week. First day, last Tuesday, sucked. When I got home, I was like, oh. But
Ripping sagebrush out.
oh yeah, yeah. And then by the end of the week, I was feeling pretty good. A little bit tired, but not exhausted tired, not sore tired. Just okay. I could use a little bit of a break here. Then
every day cooled off just a little bit more, though. That helped too.
There was one day, I think it was Thursday. It was kind of cool and windy.
Yeah.
That was really nice. Yep. So
yeah,
David says hi, little one.
Hello.
And so anyhow, I got that done. Saturday we took our usual trip out of town to the mine to do some little stuff up there. Eva just likes getting out of town once a week. So had about a half a shift I did up there. Did a little this, that, and the other. And then came back. And Sunday we had everything basically ready to go except for the final finish and get the plastic in. And the weather started rolling in. So we skedaddled out there and we started moving plastic when the rain started.
No,
We had the geotextile in, and then we were trying to get the first plastic in there, and I had to get the rocks off the geotextile, and I'm crawling under there, and it's raining, and I'm throwing rocks out. It would have been fun to have video of that, but Hi 508, how's it going? So anyhow, got the plastic stretched across there. Doesn't show it much in the thumbnail, but there's actually in that thumbnail there's probably 30-40 gallons of water in the sump end of that thing there.
We got a pretty good rain finally.
I was soaked, and my pants were filthy because I was crawling in that. It's a high clay soil there.
Yeah,
I'm crawling around, doing
Turns
stuff.
into goo.
Oh my God! Yep. There's still some of the soles of my shoes, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
They're real gummy.
Hey, Wolfman. Yeah, frostbite. 50 degrees. I'm getting frostbite.
I practically got hypothermia.
Yeah.
Hypothermia, maybe. I'll go with that one.
This morning it was pretty cool up on the mountain.
I would imagine.
We had quite a bit of rain last night up where I was.
I think I got down to about 50 degrees here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was pretty. We had like sleet coming down for a while last night up there.
And then this morning I had an appointment to get because I had kidney cancer years ago.
Yeah.
So I do once a year. I get my kidneys imaged.
Mm-hmm.
So they called me up to confirm my appointment at, I'm pretty sure they said 9 o'clock. I know that's what I wrote down. So I was supposed to go down to St. Peter's at 9 o'clock with a full bladder. So I showed up. I check in, and then they send me over to imaging, and I check in there, and she's like, I don't see you here, you know? She goes, oh, here you are. You're supposed to be here at 10:15. I'm like, wonderful.
Now I'm here.
So I'm waiting there, and the bladder's getting fuller and fuller. And then they had the usual, some deathly ill person or whatever needed that ultrasound before me.
Yeah.
So it was 11 o'clock by the time I finally
Looked like a water balloon.
and then the lady's image goes, that bladder's full.
Yeah, don't poke me.
Then I said, when we were all done, she said, I said, where's the nearest restroom? She points to the door next to her. You can use that one. Got it.
Thank you. Oh, man.
No, David came home and took a hot shower. Although I did literally hose off my boots because they were just covered in mud. Oh, it was horrible. 94 in Colorado. Sucks to be you, 508.
We finally broke down and got a little cooler weather and some rain.
Yeah, the rain was good.
Thank
Especially
God.
it was a fair amount, and it wasn't just boom.
Well, this area I'm working in now, I think that pretty much took us out of the fire danger for the rest of the season up there.
Yeah, it was.
It was a good, really good rain.
Yeah, we needed it around here. And Jim's been busy this week too.
Well, I did 3 days. That's why I wasn't here last Monday night. I was still up in the mountains.
Hey, Terry.
With the geologist going over this copper project. We were up there for 3 days working through details on that and looking at, access for drilling equipment and trying to figure out, how to permit what we're doing. So that got fairly extensive. And I did see a really, really neat thing, and I wasn't going to bring it up, but I have to, because one of the guys that was with us had the new iPhone 12 with LiDAR on the phone, and it was the damnedest thing I've ever seen. We were in these portals back in the mountains, and he had just his phone. He's walking along through these portals, and we went back outside and ran it on the program, and he literally could do 3-dimensional full scale of everything that thing took inside that mine just with a phone. Yeah, and we were discussing it further after we were out, and what the geologist said, geez, on this other job I was just on, we had a 2-man crew come in and do a couple days of LiDAR in the operation they were in. He said it cost us $20,000. And he said, what he just did right there in an hour is amazing. Yeah. So that was
on the new tablet too.
Yeah. iPad Pro or whatever, you can get it on there too. But it just was mind blowing to see that kind of technology in a phone in an area where we don't even have phone service or anything. To walk through and 3-dimensionally do all the adits and all the tunnels inside the mountain, and then be able to, with precision, yes, full width, height. It gave you all the measurements, so literally was mapping. And when we went back and re-looked at it, as you can actually do a virtual tour of walking through the through the tunnel.
So and showing you the video at the same time?
Yeah, it puts because it's taking video at the same time it's doing it. And you could go back and you could see everywhere we flagged and marked numbers for all our sample. We did chip samples throughout the portals. And everything was on there. So literally it was completely mapped just by walking through it. I couldn't believe it.
That's amazing. Yeah, that is amazing.
Yeah, that was like, wow, okay, now there's a technology that's going to get used in the future just because of how handy it was.
I haven't seen Chris show up yet. I hope he's not running away from fires or helping some friends.
Yeah,
I know
he's in a bad area.
He had a couple friends lose homes.
Yeah, I seen they were up into Lassen County and that already. That fire's gotten huge.
Yeah.
I think they just said it's the biggest fire ever in California history right now.
It might have been.
I
Last
think
I
as
heard,
of
it was
today.
the second.
No, I think as of
Yeah.
today, it made the
Could
largest
be.
fire in California history.
Yeah, that's
And
just
right
terrible.
now, we've got one big fire burning over here too. This one's over 400,000 acres over here on the other side of Townsend.
Really?
Yep. It's a little over
Where's it
400,000
at?
acres
In the
as of
Big
this
Belts,
last
or-
night. Yeah, it'd be just to the east there.
The big
Yep,
belts.
because they closed Highway 12 over the weekend for a while.
Is that the
again.
one to White Sulphur? or-
Yep, goes to White Sulphur.
Okay.
Yep, they had a section of that shut down again. So
I haven't seen much flying out of the airport here. I wonder if
there's no fires up in here though, so they could be flying Bozeman or they're flying east, so you're not hearing a lot of noise.
yeah.
You know, the days they were flying over us
That's
here,
awesome.
those big DC-10s were noisy.
Yeah, that we were when Coulter from Mining Magnets was here. We went over to 10 Mile Creek, just try a little panning there, right over top of us,
some
man.
of them low.
Those high bypass engines just screaming, and it's like, wow,
Yeah.
he's pouring on the coals,
Flying
man.
out, they stay low, they fly low.
Well, there's no reason to gain altitude just to lose it. Plus, they're heavy, so
Right.
they can
Slow
carry
climb.
more if they don't carry quite as steep. But yeah, that was pretty cool. So what's your plan for this week? Anything in particular you got lined up?
I don't know. I may be up looking at some placer ground up to the northwest up here at some point this week.
Okay.
Kind of waiting to see what happens, and then probably get up there for a day or two.
Yeah.
And I've got some equipment to move too, so at some point I wanted to maybe haul a few trailers and move some stuff.
Okay. And take video when you can.
I will.
And my plan for this week, first of all, I got 3 sides of that liner tied down. The 4th side, that the soil was a little dry. It's kind of hard. That's a high clay soil. When it's dry, it's hard. Even with the Matic, it just doesn't want to give up. So I did a little trench real quick and poured a bunch of water in it, and figured it's tied down good. Especially that was the end with the sump. So you got a couple 100 pounds holding the plastic down. Although once you've tied the edges down, it really doesn't like to lift because it's trying to create a vacuum
Right.
under it, and it doesn't want to do that. But so I got to get that done. Then I got to go in the building there and put another shelf up so I can put the reservoir for the electrolytic cell and the power supply for the electrolytic cell. I need to put a light overhead so I can see what the hell I'm doing,
Yeah.
and run some power in there on some power strip extension cords, that kind of stuff. So that will probably take me about a day
Mhm.
to get all that stuff done. And then the next day I'll actually be doing electrolytic. So, hey Terry, how's it going? So theoretically, this week I should actually be plating gold. I've got 2 cement mixers full of material. I got 85 pounds of ore leached now. By the time I get back out there.
Yeah.
And the cement mixer had an angle about like this where it would tip. It had stops where it would latch at that.
Right.
And it could do it vertically, but it didn't have anything in the middle. So I took a grinder and cut another slot in there.
Make another lock.
And with it steeper like that, according to the initial calculations, it could hold 35 pounds of ore and 70 pounds of water. It held that comfortably. So then the next batch I put in 50 pounds of ore with about the same amount of water.
Sure.
And now I'm going to try 100 pounds of ore. It's going to be a thicker slurry, which is less desirable for certain other things. But once it's dissolved, I can thin it out later without a problem and recover the gold and stuff out of it. And my bottleneck right now is the agitation time. You're looking at like a 24-hour agitation time. So the more stuff I can get in there at once, the better. Once I get the electrolytic cell pretty well whipped into shape, then I got to clean the area just to the west or it's on the uphill side of that tailings pad that I built, so I can start putting in more milling stuff there
Equipment.
and get some more stuff done. And so got lots to do. Things are moving pretty quickly here in terms of scale up. As Jim is aware, but other people may not be, everything does not always scale up well. You know, when you think, well, okay, if I just multiply everything by 10, I get 10 times. Sometimes things happen.
You know, you can try it.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's going to work.
Well, I'm beginning to start calling this the SpaceX methodology. You give it your best shot, try it, see what happens, and then fix what broke.
Well, sometimes that's how you got to do it.
Well, in that case, it works really fast.
Well, right.
And because everything is so cheap and quickly built, they can blow stuff up. It also makes for, I have to admit, isn't
Awesome
it more
video.
exciting to watch a SpaceX launch than a NASA?
Yeah.
Because, you know, there's a good chance something's going to go boom here,
Yeah, it
you
might-
know?
Might end well, not well.
Yeah. When they were talking about the first launch, which should be in a couple of weeks, of their orbital attempt on
I
stuff.
haven't been following them
'Cause that-
lately, but I think
They got to have a booster, and that thing's like, I don't know, 200 feet tall. And then the Starship goes on top, and that's about another 200 feet tall. And the booster's got 29 engines. And, you know, Musk is going, yeah, we can lose one or two, no big deal. We got extra stuff. And
built it with overkill.
they're just, well, they're going to launch it and just throw the booster away. They're just going to drop it in the ocean because we're not ready to catch it yet. The tower that is actually going to catch it, we haven't got that built finished yet. So we're just going to, but he said, you know, the guy's asking him, well, what would be a success? He goes, well,
Getting it in
as long as it doesn't blow up on the pad
Yeah,
and take out the
get it.
tower, because that's tough to build. That takes a lot longer than building boosters. Said we call that a success. If it makes it to orbit, it will be a tremendous success. And then the guy asked him, well, when it's coming down from orbit, because they're just going to splash it in the ocean and destroy it anyway.
Right.
Because they just don't have all the stuff to do that. And the guy's saying, so how will you know what went wrong? You know, if the heat shield failed or whatever, how can you tell? And it was so funny because Musk, you can tell he hadn't really thought of this in
About that
detail
one.
yet. 'Cause he's moving. It's kind of like what I'm doing. I'm moving so fast. It's like,
Haven't thought
I'll worry
about
about it when I get there.
Yeah.
Should be able to figure it out. And so they're sitting there, and he's just kind of staring off into space for almost a minute. And I love the interviewer just sat there and,
Yeah, thinking it
and
through.
let him do it. And then he goes, you know, we could put an infrared camera inside the tank because the tank is the vehicle, you know, the
Mhm.
booster, and the Starship itself. You know, so they're be watching the side of the tank is watching the inside of the outside. He said, so we put an infrared camera there, and we'll see the hotspot. And then he thinks for a little bit, goes, heck, that stuff doesn't melt till it glows white hot. Just a normal camera would be fine, you know. But it was so interesting. The guy's obviously a little bit off in terms of he's not a normal person. The way he talks,
his thinking is.
I think he's got Asperger's or something. But I mean, the guy's really smart, but he's not a normal person, and that's okay. I'm not a normal person either. You know,
Me either.
But
I've never been normal.
well, to be normal, you'd have to be average. You can't be exceptional if you're normal. So, you know, screw it. But
No.
I say it was fun to watch him, you know, think these things. And that's kind of the way I'm doing it here. And I'm glad I got really good support from my benefactor.
Right.
I would call it like, you know, back in
Yeah, what do you do?
medieval times, you know, you have a rich nobleman who wants to, you know,
Our patron.
patron. There you go. Wow, Chris. I'm glad you made it.
Maybe it's California, Chris.
Yeah. So anyhow,
Is Christian okay?
yeah, his cell phone was just screwed up and stuff. But as I say, he's perfectly comfortable making good progress, even if there's setbacks and glitches and this and that.
You know as well as I do, when you build something, sometimes you're winging it.
Well,
It's like, well, I think this will work. And then eventually you have to make a change to something because it's not quite working how you want it to.
Yep.
You know, it's kind of a reverse way of building something, but
yeah, and the thing is too, with every ore being different, and I'm trying a new leachant.
right.
And I think it was Gruber Ned sent me a link last night of, I think it's Dirty Dog Mining or something in Australia. They got a leach pad.
Okay.
And this guy did the dumbest thing. They had algae growing in their, I presume, the fresh makeup water.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't usually grow in the leach solution. Right. And so he put some hydrochloric acid in the fresh water to kill the algae. And it kind of messed up his recovery.
Kind of screw up your whole system.
Well, no shit, Sherlock.
Holy crap.
It destroys cyanide. It's a good thing that, I mean, that will generate hydrogen cyanide gas.
Yeah.
It's a good thing they didn't wind up getting sick or dying. They had a situation in Arizona years ago when it was very poorly regulated where, and we were at a lecture that was being given on by the mine mineral resources guy. And there was a little mom and pop heap leach sort of thing out there. And he said the two guys weren't keeping their pH properly and they got sick and they hauled them out. They saved their lives. But when the inspectors went out there, the ponds were fizzing with hydrogen cyanide gas.
Ouch.
And so you always test stuff small. Like I'm going to try this different solid to liquid ratio stuff. Well, I'm not going to try it on the biggest thing I got. I'm going to do it in the bottle roll first and see what happens because it's a lot easier to play with and debug when it's
small sample.
Yeah, small scale like that. I mean, if I got 100 pounds of tailings and something is screwed with it, it's like, this is a little hard to handle.
Yeah.
But I also did some settling. I took the cement mixer, poured it into the wheelbarrow.
Yeah.
Let it settle for, I don't know, 5-10 minutes, something like that. I'll time something next time. And then decanted it into just a sterilite. It's easier to hit than a bucket.
Right. Okay.
And then from there, I poured the liquid in there. And so I got a fair amount of solids still remaining in the wheelbarrow when I did that. So I'm getting a reasonable solid liquid separation there. And then I took those buckets of solution, a pretty dirty solution, and just set them in a couple other buckets so they're at a tilt.
Right.
Because if you put them flat and everything settles the bottom, and then you start doing that,
right,
it slumps on the bottom and mixes. So if you have them at like a 45-degree angle,
them a little bit.
It's a lot easier to pour it off and not get it as dirty. So when I get back out there Tuesday, I'll be, pouring off the cleaner solution there and doing some other stuff. But yeah, I've got a couple of weeks of electrolytic testing and solid liquid separation testing.
So you're getting some of your parts in for all of that here?
I got all the parts in.
Do you? Okay.
All I got to do is go out there and do it. Power supply's in. The titanium expanded metal for anodes is in. I got all kinds of stuff out there just sitting on one bench where I need to build another bench and get it, get lights and all the miscellaneous stuff. And then I can actually start doing it. But I mean, I took 2 sterilites that should hold equivalent of about 1.5 buckets. And one of them, I'm going to put a fitting on it. So I can put a little 1/2-inch ball valve. From there, the hose will run into the electrolytic cell. And then the stuff will go down along the cathode, come up around the anode, and then overflow into another fitting, the hose of which goes into another sterilite of the same size. So I can fill the top one, open it up, let it run through, and go like that.
Cool.
So, yeah, you want to use them as cathodes. I want to use it for an anode. I don't have carbon anodes. Are they worse or better than stainless steel as an anode? That's the thing that gets eaten up badly. Come on, Chris. Is it better or worse than stainless as an anode? Okay. Because for cathodes, we're just going to have to wait a little bit, I think, because we need to be able to get the gold off of it in a more. I know they're fine, but which is better, Chris? Which is better, titanium or stainless, or are they both the same? Okay. Because I know we used to chew up. I think we had to go to carbon anodes over at Chemgold. Well, yeah, because it doesn't make a great anode until you coat it. Coat it with what? I guess when you use it as a cathode is what he's saying. So great. Now I got to explain to the boss why I got to go buy some stainless steel now. So anyhow, I'm going to be doing some testing and we'll see what happens. And I got to figure out what the voltages I need. Passivation, huh? Well, wonderful. Okay. In other words, it'll combine with something and become non-conductive. You know. No, that's chrome, not stainless, I don't think. I don't think Ford bumpers were stainless. They might be. I don't know. It's easy to find stainless. I can go down to Walmart and find something made out of stainless. Yeah. But I really need some stainless sheet. So maybe over there at Pacific Steel. That's where I'd go. You know. Can I go 304 or do I need like 314, Chris?
Stainless steel cookie sheet, maybe?
Yeah, they don't make stainless steel cookie sheets. They make coated steel and they make aluminum, but they don't make stainless steel cookie sheets. So they make a number of stainless steel.
I would think 304 stainless would be adequate.
It's really corrosive when you start throwing current to it.
It's fine. Copper is possibly better. Stainless bowls, yeah, that's a
but stainless bowl won't fit in the spot I've got. Stainless serving tray, stainless coffee cup.
They do make
I could cut one and unroll it. I'll have to check, see what I can find. But I say for cathodes, I understand what you're saying, Chris, but I need to be able to get some gold and show it to them real quick. And to get it off the cathode, I mean, you now got to take it, move the cathode to the anode side, replate it onto something else, which then I got to do something with.
Yeah, sink in a junkyard. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, there's all kinds of stainless steel stuff that they make. Say, I just need the cell I'm starting. I think Chris calculated I need about maybe 1 square foot of anode or electrode area, and so 3 by 4 inches. So I've got a really small cell. It's about this big and about that tall. It's a food container. It's like you put pasta in or something,
Okay.
And yeah, Terry, it shouldn't be that hard to find some stainless, but that's why I was asking if I need 314 or just 304.
According to the internet, they sell stainless steel cookie sheets at Walmart and Amazon,
Yeah, that would work.
amongst other places.
Say, a 9 by 13 stainless steel cookie sheet would make me 3 or 4 or
Get
5.
4 good pieces out of it.
Yeah, just take the cutting wheel and
Trim it up.
I've got plastic tubing as the supports, so I can just bend. Yeah, what I was planning to do is notching the end of a
Hang it over.
rectangular sheet, bending the 2 sides to hang it. The third one sticks up, drill a hole, and clamp the wire to it. Sure. Chris Georgie, you will probably want to use the titanium for basket for carbon cathode. Maybe in the long run. I understand what you're saying. Another thing I was thinking, if you just need more surface area with that mesh, if you take a much longer sheet of it and bend it this way, and then bend it that way, and like that, and just accordion it into a much denser mass of material, that would probably work out pretty well. I say right now, I got it set up with what do you call it? Steel wool. In terms of copper, oh yeah, so if you accordioned that mesh, you'd have a lot of surface area and a nice rigid, solid mass that would be very porous. You'd have a lot of surface area there. That would work fine, especially if you were going to use electrowinning cells and then electro-refining cells, where in the electrowinning cell, you plate onto the titanium cathode, then you move the cathode once it's loaded into an electro-refining cell where you've gotten rid of a lot of other stuff, and then you can plate the gold off of that onto something else. So there's just so many different ways you can go about this. We'll play games. By the way, Chris, while you're at the sulfuric acid dissolves steel just fine. I think battery acid would do a reasonable job on stainless steel, not stainless, steel wool. And say we shall see. There's just so many different ways you can play these games. You know, like he's talking about a cylinder. For example, if you rolled the cathode mesh into a cylinder and then had a bar of carbon as your anode, because carbon just stays there, it doesn't dissolve even when you put a current on it like that, and then run it through a pipe, you can play interesting games. There's all kinds of different ways you can play this game. And so I was used to doing it, the wholesale thing, and that wasn't really my job anyway. I was the mine operations superintendent, not the mill guy. Recovery. But it was a small operation, so there's a bit of overlap, you know, different hats sort of thing. Well, I tell you what, one of my scariest days was when I had to blast a new pond for the mill, and it had hard basalt, and my last row of holes was 40 feet from the mill building. And they want me to blast that thing. So I used the holes tightly spaced, loaded just the bottoms of them to shear that plane and break that up. There was one rock there that was left. I mean, it didn't hit the mill. Nothing flew and hit the mill. But there was one rock there that was left that was so big that a 992A could not pick it up. He had to just scoot it over, drag it out. He used it for riprap. Was one of the slopes of the new pond was right next to a flood control channel, so we used that as riprap on the flood control channel side. There you go.
This is burn your steel. It will burn. I know that.
Yeah, if you took an oxyacetylene torch and run it oxygen rich, interesting concept.
What are you left with then, though?
Well, you're going to wind up with iron oxide, and you're going to have your precious metals as material, and then you could
just smelt it.
Smelt it. I might even just be able to flux it as steel wool.
Maybe smelt.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just throw the whole thing into the.
Yeah, if you can get it in the crucible, so you can smelt it.
Would Chapman flux work on that? Do you think, Chris?
I would try.
Just throw Chapman flux in there and melt it all down and see what happens. That's simple. That's really simple. I'm a big giant fan of simple myself. Yeah, so you see, that's one of the reasons I'm not a huge fan of winding up with the titanium cathode, is because you can't just put the titanium cathode and smelt it down.
Right.
You know, first of all, it's pretty damned expensive.
Yeah.
If you were to take, if we were to take in the electro refining cell and replate onto steel wool or some, I mean, you got different. Yeah, that's why I was asking about the sulfuric acid, because you could, I know we used to use hydrochloric acid, but I agree with you. I don't like getting the chloride ion near the gold, because then you wind up with gold chloride, and that's a bad thing because it goes away again.
Yeah, disappear.
But that's why I asked, can you, I think sulfuric acid will dissolve steel. It's got a lot of surface area there, but there's ways to do it. Hey, Smokey. So let's say this is some of the stuff I'm going to go through and make videos on, guys. I left my other silver gold strips in my back pocket. But yeah, I mean, in the long run, especially if we wind up with a richer mine somewhere and have more tonnage and more gold to recover, that makes sense. Another thing too is, if you were to have electrowinning in the field and all your cathodes so big, weigh so much, when you take it out of the cell, before you transport it, you weigh it and then haul it off to a more secure location for the actual refining. You know, I suppose you could use a lead sheet too if you were gonna, what do you call that? Q-pellet later. Yeah, you could do that. There's lots of different options. I want the simplest, most idiot-resistant methodology that's also quite economical.
I use Chapman flux and borax on some pretty nasty looking gold. Boy, you can clean it right out.
Yeah. Yeah, tin. Exactly, Chris. I said there's lots of different things. For right now, I'm just gonna try with the. I guess I'll have to come up with a stainless steel anode now, and then try the steel wool cathode for the moment. What voltage should I start at, do you think? Distance between electrodes, roughly 2 to 2.5 inches, with a plastic woven fabric between them to act kind of like your semi-permeable membrane and separate the pregnant solution flow from the barren solution flow. What voltage do you think I should start with, and what visual observational evidence should I use to try and determine if I'm fairly close, in your opinion? Lowest voltage with a significant increase in current. So as I start dialing up the voltage, I will see the current go like this, correct? The curve will change. Okay. This is going to be, say, interesting, because I always did it where somebody else had figured out these things.
They just dial it there and go with
Yeah.
it. Yeah. Well.
Yeah, I think that's a little bit much, Lars. Probably, it's going to be single digits, but I don't know. The power supply, I haven't really looked at it. I got the one Chris suggested. It's probably either the 10th or the 100th of a volt. I wouldn't be surprised if it's a 100th of a volt. we shall see what happens. Couple hundred milliamp hour per centimeter squared, huh? Let me write it down here. 200 milliamp hour per centimeter squared. Now, would that be actual surface area of the grid or the area that the grid encompasses? I presume it's the actual surface area of the grid. You know, because, the holes don't count, I wouldn't think. So I have to find out how much of expanded metal is whole and how much is metal. So the easiest way to do that would be 600 millivolts, huh? So 0.6 volts to start with, huh? 0.6 volts. I hope everybody watching is enjoying this. I'll send a spreadsheet.
Yeah, right.
That doesn't shock me in the slightest, does it? But anyhow,
that's what you'll end up with trying to figure it out.
yeah. This is some pretty fine stuff. This is like 1 millimeter expanded metal.
It's looks like a wire.
It's bigger than window screen, but it looks more like screen than expanded metal. I mean, it clearly has a structure of expanded metal.
Right.
But yeah. So, and this little sharp pointy things on the ends too. It's typical of expanded metal. Huh. Okay, so I need to get some stainless steel. Let me put that on my shopping list here for tomorrow. Okay, because if it's a stainless steel anode, if it's a sheet, it's real easy to figure out the surface area. In terms of the cathode, I can just add more steel wool.
There you go. Stainless spatula. You get the surface area with some holes right there.
Yeah.
That's not a bad idea, Chris. Easy to set in and hook to.
I could probably make something pretty easy. I say the way I designed the cell, but a spatula would probably
It would
work.
work, I think.
Just give me just a piece of sheet.
I
stainless
don't
and
know
all.
about awesome there, 508. It wouldn't go that far. Lost, maybe. We're lost.
See, the nice thing is we're in that zone where as we learn, you can learn.
Yeah,
If we were all PhDs here, you'd be going like, what the hell are they talking about?
Right. We'll keep it on a level we can all understand, hopefully.
Yeah, but you're trying to do a little bit different thing, Rick. We're not trying to clean stuff, which, as you put it on the anode, that would work. But the trick we're trying to do is to plate the gold and silver without plating anything else that we don't need to, or breaking down the electrolyte. So we're trying to nuance it a little bit as opposed to just brute force it and get everything. We'll see. Sometimes brute force works just fine, depending upon what else is in solution and stuff. But if you're plating out iron and copper and a bunch of other base metals, you're just using up current that would be better used recovering the gold and silver. This is an electrowinning cell as opposed to an electroplating cell. The purpose of this is to extract gold from solution. You're not plating from an anode to a cathode. As a matter of fact, it's best if the anode doesn't dissolve at all. And the ions that are landing on the cathode are solely from the solution. And so that is a little bit of a different situation. Plus, you've got a you've got a complex electrolyte that has a lot of crap in it. When you have, well, like if they're chrome plating or nickel plating or whatever, that electrolyte only has chrome or nickel or whatever they need, because anything else will tend to screw things up unless they're carefully choreographed admixes like leveling agents. You know how a leveling agent works?
Not really.
Well, if you have a rough spot on a surface, you're going to have more current flow there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So a leveling agent is preferentially attracted to the higher current flow and retards the plating process. So it'll stick on the high spot where the high current is and force more plating on the others, thus leveling it off.
Okay.
You know?
No, my dad had a plating shop for years, but I was young enough. I never.
Yeah.
I no more than wandered around in there looking at what they were doing.
Yeah. I say, so we shall see. This is all, we're all trying to find parameters at this point and see what the heck works and what doesn't. Chris is also working on some what they call colorimetric. In other words, you're looking at a color and seeing how much is something. You know, when you check your pool chlorine,
Right.
that's a colorimetric test.
Okay.
Because you can look and you can see it's got, you know, which of these vials here is the closest color to that one.
Right.
You know, well, he's working on a colorimetric test with, I believe, stannous chloride, so we can put it directly into our leach solution. Maybe
check it.
there may be some admix we'll need to
See
do,
if you're getting it stripped or.
and to get a rough idea how much is in there.
Right.
So that so that when it's running through your circuit in the field, right now, when I do this testing, I'm going to have to take samples, haul them to town, give them to a lab, wait 2 to 4 days
Yeah.
if there's no weekend,
Right.
and get the results back. Well, that's very, very time consuming.
Yep.
Whereas if you can do it on site in 5 minutes, especially cheaper, that's a huge improvement. So, we will work on that, and again, we'll take you guys all along for the ride so you can see how it's done and how we muddle our way through the dark forest of possibilities and come out on the bright sunlit plains of the future.
The gold-plated side.
Ah, there you go, the golden plains.
Yeah.
Yes. So, anyhow, that's what I've got to do for the next week or two. Yeah, I know. I say, if we can just, after a while, kind of like with my panning technique, I bet you I'll be able to rough it in by eye. And I don't know about you, Chris, but I would say if the electrowinning cell by itself gets 90% recovery out of solution, I'd say that's pretty darn good, because you can always run the solution through more times or through another cell or this. And so there's ways you deal with it. Plus, you never get all the gold out of the tailings. One of the reasons that I built the tailings pad is not just to dispose of the tailings, but to get as much gold in solution out of it over time as possible.
Continue to collect it.
And so that's the kind of situation where, again, there's just loads and loads of testing to do here. So I'll be making lots of videos, and hopefully it'll be pretty simple. And I know
I think you'll get it dialed in. It's just going through the procedure of figuring out what's working.
Yeah, and I think that video technique I used before, where I put a lot of stuff just in text on the screen, I think that worked pretty well, because if you're not going to be doing it anytime soon, all you really want to do is see in general what's going on.
Right.
But that way, for all posterity, as long as YouTube allows my videos, you need to get in their platform too. Yeah, it's getting pretty ridiculous out there. But that way, you'll be able to refer to it at any time in the future. Yeah. So Chris is having a good time too, I suspect. He's been an enormous help.
Yeah.
I could probably do this without him, but I'd make more mistakes and go a lot slower. So, we all owe
And
a
it's nice to
debt.
have somebody to bounce ideas back and forth and come up with that sometimes.
Yeah, unfortunately, you're not the best guy to bounce chemistry off of.
No, that side of it's, I'm learning right here with everybody that's watching this too.
Well, and whenever you have a question or whatever, ask me, because there's somebody out there that has the same damn question.
Yeah, that's true.
But let's say, so that's basically where we're at right now, what I'm planning on focusing on this week. I'm not even sure. We may go to get more ore this week from the dumps up there, but we may just go camping for a day this weekend. By the way, how long does it take to get to Glacier and back? It's about a 1-day trip, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's about almost 3 hours up there.
Only 3 hours?
Yeah, it's not that.
With my truck, about 4.
No.
Yeah.
3. You can't go fast. It's going up the back roads.
Okay. Yeah, I was wondering because
It's a pretty drive if you go up to Sealy Swan.
yeah, I'd like to go up there. I've never seen Glacier before. Neither has Eva.
It's a beautiful park.
Yeah, it's gorgeous stuff. I know. What are you doing? Panning, Terry?
Yeah,
I presume panning cons?
that's cool.
Yep. And the same procedure would theoretically work for recovering gold from concentrates.
Yeah.
Among other things, if you had like a stainless steel pot or something like that, and put your concentrates on the bottom,
Black sand or whatever you're dealing with.
and then hung a basket, it was like Chris was talking about hanging a basket of carbon in it, but hang your cathode there and then just turn and plate the gold onto that, then you get really, really good recovery very easily. You wouldn't have to spend a lot of time panning. Now, some people love to pan and they enjoy that. To me, it's interesting if I'm, seeing something interesting, but the actual process itself, nah, it's just one more thing. I probably have more fun carving dirt like I did last week.
Oh, it's physical labor.
I don't know why, but I mean, using my muscles like that.
Part of that is you're actually seeing a good instant result. You get done at the end of the day and you can see it did something.
Yep. And let's say, so I just, I find it's kind of like artwork, so to speak, like a sculptor or something.
Well, it's fun to be at the end of the week or the end of the day or whatever to see, geez, look at what we accomplished today. What can we do tomorrow?
But by the way, folks, my brother called me up this afternoon and said, "Did you get that text I just sent you?" And I go, "No, why?" He says, "Sent you a picture." I go, "Oh, what?" Well, at the mine he's working at, they had a shallow dump, I'm guessing 30 feet tall, where they were dumping the trucks off of near the crusher, and then there was a Cat 992C 12-yard bucket feeding the crusher with it. And so the loader is digging the bank, and trucks are dumping, and one of the trucks got too close to the edge of the bank and wound up
Coming over.
like this. Luckily it was a very short bank, so basically it settled in and the load itself came out of the bed and braced it this way, but you had a 250-ton haul truck pointing straight up in the air. Oh my goodness. I haven't talked to Cody yet. I've watched some of his videos. I'm pretty comfortable with Chris right now, and plus I've done a lot of stuff myself in the past on a more industrial scale. It's just every ore is different, and we're using a different chemical, and at different scales, different things make more sense. we were moving 14,000 tons a day and recovering about 3,000 ounces a month. And at those scales, a full-time mill operator just to keep track of solutions and move carbon columns and things like that makes perfect sense. When you're dealing at 1 ton a day and less than 1 ounce per ton at the current time, that makes a big difference. So we're trying to use appropriately scaled methodologies that are not very labor intensive for what you like. The idea of just fluxing your steel wool cathode. We didn't do that up there because we had a lot of gold and a lot of steel wool, and it would have taken a lot of melting. So you wanted to concentrate first. But if all you're looking at is an ounce of gold and a...
So did they acid strip it then? Is that what they
Yeah,
did?
they used hydrochloric, which I think was stupid because, again, you can dissolve gold.
Right.
Gold chloride is soluble.
Right.
Now, aqua regia is hydrochloric and nitric. The nitric provides the oxidizing potential that drives the reaction.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean it doesn't happen without the nitric acid. It just means it goes a whole lot slower. So, yeah. (18.2 mega ohm per centimeter. That's a capital M there. That is ultra pure water. I wouldn't be surprised, Chris, to say it seemed unnecessarily risky to me. I'm going to try sulfuric acid, see how that works. But see, that's nothing. I got to get a furnace and smelting supplies and flux and all that other stuff. Get that set up too. Woo! Busy summer. But yeah, it's Chris is talking. I'm not sure exactly why he needs such ultra pure water, but I'll take his word for it. 18.2 mega ohms per centimeters. Now that's pretty high. I don't know if you know this. Very high purity water is actually one of the best insulators known.
Really?
Yep, absolutely. When they do these like super high capacity capacitors for like fusion research and stuff, ultra pure water is the insulator. Much better than transformer oil.
Wow.
But it has to be ultra pure. It's the impurities that cause it to conduct. Yeah. But no, it does cooling too, but also as far as in the article I was reading, said that it has higher resistance than transformer oil by a factor of about 2. You know, it also is cool because it's clear, so you can see the electricity when they discharge it. Yep. So there may be better dielectrics. I'm not sure. Solid ones maybe, but yeah, for the capacitors, I think they use it for cooling also. It's pretty weird when you're dealing with current flows more than the entire United States, but for fractions of a tiny part of a second, you know? It's ridiculous. Yes, we're using energy at the rate of New York City for 0.03 femtoseconds. You know? Read an article once, don't know if it didn't check the math, but the space shuttle main engines were each, I think it was 150 million horsepower. Those were the oxyhydrogen rockets on the bottom of it. And the solid rocket boosters were each something like 500 million horsepower while they were firing. And they said, with all the rockets lit, when it launches off the pad, it was using energy at the rate of the entire eastern seaboard of the United States. Then once the solids burned out, it was only burning energy at the rate of New York City. Wow. So anyhow, as you might figure out, I'm a bit of a space cadet. I like the space things, etc. But say we're working on just a whole bunch of different things that should be very applicable to the scale that you guys are going to be operating at, which is the important thing. And so I'm very happy. Let's see what we got. We got 26 people watching. Now, compared to a lot of live streams, that is beyond pitiful.
Well,
But I'm very happy with it.
We seem to have people that have the interest, and that's
Exactly. And
we're trying to be the education if we can.
It's like a
and-
bunch of friends getting around.
Yeah.
I love these people say, I got 3,000 Facebook friends. It's like, good, call them up at 2:00 in the morning, tell them you're broke down, see who shows up.
See who shows up. Good luck with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's what a friend is. Now, a real friend says, do you need tools or guns?
Yeah. What's the situation?
Yep. So anyhow, this is kind of cool because with this new Eco Goldex stuff, it opens a lot of possibilities.
I'm impressed. Being here with Keith and seeing what he's doing and thinking of the possibilities, because over the years in my mind, I'm looking at all these old mines I've been around up here in these mountains, and there's some of them that definitely, with the capability of this, between grinding gravity separation and then taking some of that material and doing going this route, some of these mines could be actually fairly productive mines again.
Well, especially for a small scale, because $1 million a year is not much for Kennecott, but it sure as hell is fine for me.
Yeah, for a family-sized operation. And it's conceivable. You got to find the right mine that has 1 ounce per ton or better.
Patrick, look up the 3S method of endangered species management on Google, and I think you'll get the reference there. I can't say anything else. The algorithms are watching.
Yeah, right. You get thrown off here.
But I think there's a lot of potential up here.
Oh, there is. I just overhearing things over the years, talking to some of these old miners. I mean, they remember what they were taking out for ore over here and over there on that mine. So a lot of those notes I've written down.
Yeah.
And then now it's a matter of go back to those check dumps, identify, is there really something they're worth kind of looking at?
Sure.
Possibly opening an adit to get into a mine and go look.
Yeah, because it's so variable. The place I'm working, Montana B, the wall rock does seem to carry some gold. It's low grade, but it's heap leach grade plus. But there's other mines where it's extremely confined. There's only gold in the vein. So you could have a dump that doesn't have crap in it.
No,
it doesn't mean it's a bad mine.
Right. They high graded it. Ideally, any historical records you can find, newspaper articles from 1880 or whatever, may lead you to something that's very viable nowadays at $1,600 gold or whatever it did today. I didn't even look, but
1724.
oh, that's not too
1724 according to the tinfoil hat.
That's not bad.
Goddess.
It'll set the low here, and then
around there, and we will be discussing the ramifications of the micro crash.
How did people hear Eva just now? Were you able to hear her reasonably clearly, or was it just in the background? I'm just curious because it's important to know that for the dynamic here. She's really good at sitting there sniping from a distance, just waiting. Chris says reasonable. Mr. Lodak says that they could hear. Okay. So you were.
I will not move my throne.
Okay.
There was a lot of
They heard you.
mines, in the area that I kind of tend to spend most of my time that were 3/4 of an ounce of gold. And at the time, that wasn't profitable for them guys.
Mhm.
You know, at $30 gold or $33 gold, it was too much work.
Well, and
You know, if they had mines where they hit pockets, maybe that, you know, they'd hit one or two good openings in an ore body somewhere. That was a little different. Then they'd kind of work them every year for a while. But in some of that stuff, it was just on that edge of this isn't worth the effort.
yeah, and
And
that's,
you know, nowadays, if you could have consistent 3/4 of an ounce per ton material, provided you had a vein that was decent enough to make it worth running a
Right.
portal, you know, or make, you know, a tunnel, by golly, then there you go.
yeah. And Montana B is small to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Might be mostly mined out, hard to tell, but it's a great place to develop the technology that can, as long as it's highly mobile and flexible,
Right?
you can move it around other places, and therefore it's not a sunk cost. It's
No,
it's like a toolbox.
yeah, really what you're doing is building quite a nice little test plant, you know, size system that you could, you know, you could test rock from other mines and do the same exact system you're doing.
Yeah.
So now you've got a pilot plant really by the time you've got it set up.
Exactly.
You know?
Well, I mean, that's one thing that my patron is fully understanding of, is this process. You start, you know, very small and work up through the stages.
Right.
And that's exactly what you do for every mine.
Yep.
So none of this is wasted. A lot of what people do that's really counterproductive is they'll get a mine and then first mistake will be to assume that just because it had gold in the past or whatever, it's still got some. Very, very big assumption there. There may be essentially zero accessible gold of any reasonable grade now. But then they go out and buy a bunch of equipment and spend tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars
They do.
without testing the process, and they wind up with an inefficient or useless system. Or like at the King of Arizona mine, they finally get the system built and running poorly, in my opinion, but it needed 50 tons an hour to turn a profit, and they only had enough water for 10.
Bad mistake.
And they just assumed they would be allowed to reopen the old well. Ha ha ha, this is Arizona. All the water rights are owned. We have, you know, they have ranches that sold their water rights because it's worth a lot more than the land. You know, it's just insane how water is over there. Hey, gold miner. Chris will have more on that. It's got thiosulfate in it. I believe it also has some ferrocyanide. But Chris is more the chemist. And, oh, that's another thing I got to do. Send him a sample of that.
Well, and even with Chris's comment, I've seen that in placer operations as well. Is they had the wrong equipment for the site they were on, and yeah, you can go out and spend all kinds of money and feel good about what you've done, but if it wasn't dialed in for what the recovery or the particle size that you need to recover, even in a placer situation, the damn equipment's junk.
Yeah.
You know, you need to get somebody in to redesign or get a different piece of equipment in there, because until you know what the particle sizes are that you're dealing with within the placer, then you dial into, you know, a 90% capture of that size material.
And there you go. Chris answered your question there, AU Miner.
With ferrocyanide and the copper complex.
The copper complex would be an accelerator, basically. But the Like my gravity concentrator works pretty darn good for a gravity concentrator, and it worked pretty darn good on Ryan's ore down in Tucson. I get maybe 15% into the concentrates, and I don't even know if that was I was capturing gold or it was still just stuck to the iron sort of thing. So it was essentially, I would consider it ineffective on this stuff at all. I had to just rethink the whole plan. The guys over there in Butte with their fancy Mosley table, which has beyond exceedingly slow recovery, it wasn't getting good recoveries. I mean, virtually nil. And that sort of thing just tells you that that's not going to work. Period. End of story. You know, it's like trying to use solder on stainless steel. You know, lead solder doesn't work on stainless steel. Period. Now there may be a stainless steel solder out there, but you're going to have to change the plan of attack. And that's where the testing comes in. Spend a little money to find out, first of all, whether or not spending a lot of money is going to do anything besides empty your pockets. And number two, spend it in the way it's going to work. I bet you everybody here has had something wrong with their car, spent a lot of money trying to fix what was wrong, and then found out it was actually something else.
Right. Yep.
Absolutely.
And that's how this can work exactly.
And my guy down in Tucson just called me up. The transmission's messing up on one of the trucks down there. We have two because they're both old and you need one for sure. So you'd like to have two. And he says the guys told me it might be better just to buy another truck because this one's so old, etc. And I said, that is entirely possible. There's times when it's cheaper to buy another old used truck than it is to try and, rebuild a transmission or an engine or something. So you got to analyze your situation carefully. And that is where most of the small scale, micro scale prospector type miners make their mistakes, is they don't do enough research and testing and therefore wind up buying the wrong equipment or simply, it's not going to work there. It can be from doing bad sampling and getting non-representative samples.
Yeah, you can get a nugget effect, or you can get nothing and find out you didn't do it right.
That sounds about right, gold miner. It is pretty expensive. Yeah, but Glenn, are they selling those, or is it just what they're doing?
It's probably a report of what they're doing.
Yeah, it's probably more just disclosures.
And it really is good to go through and read some of that. I try to kind of watch mining.com quite a bit to see what drill results are coming in around the world on different projects and stuff, and it's pretty interesting.
Let's see. Yeah, reports and disclosures. Exactly. And say I'm awfully busy, so for me, I've read reports, right, and stuff. To just read reports of somebody else is not terribly entertaining.
I guess I did it for the knowledge that, you can gain some knowledge by understanding what they're doing on their drilling project or, where they're at in their system.
Sure.
So you get to you start to understand it better, especially if you're coming from not having a background in it. I mean, I've been around drilling water wells and, plumbing and city sewer and water. And so for me, that wasn't understandable, but it's interesting to see what's happening with some of these companies.
Yeah.
And you get to see how much money they really will spend, 10 years worth of assessing a mine before they decide that they're going to file for the mining permits to mine it.
Well, the
You
other
know.
thing too about reports is you have to understand who the report is written for.
Well, exactly.
Is this a primarily internal report where the exploration department is trying to inform management as to what's out in the field so that they can then make appropriate strategies? Or is this a promotional report
Yeah.
designed to go out there and entice investors to buy
right.
stock?
Yep, stockholders.
They're going to be written entirely different, and it's nice to be able to spot the differences. I've read in the last couple of months 2 reports for people,
Mhm.
both for free. One was someplace in Nevada, the other one was in Guinea, who just wanted my opinion, and that's fine because I'm doing it for a reason now. Somebody's like, yeah, I'm looking at this, or I'm interested in this thing, or whatever. What am I looking at here? And that's fine. I do that. There's no charge for that as long as I have the time available. But
Yeah.
I have never tried buying anything through Alibaba. You, little one, any information on that?
Alibaba is not bad. There's 2 parts. There's AliExpress, which is where you find ordinary things, and there's Alibaba, where you find all kinds of obscure, crazy things from the middle of China that can take months to arrive, but they're super, super cheap. I have indeed purchased off Alibaba.
Okay. Yeah, $1,200 mini excavator. And I like, Chris thing. Yeah, good luck getting it
well,
shipped
you're right.
for anything.
By the time you get it here, it might be 10,000.
And I don't know what the delays are now, too. The supply chains have been so disrupted. Eva May, as part of her tinfoil hat report, just described some of the things she's noticing in terms of empty shelves around here. But I know that there's a lot of stuff that isn't showing up. Buckets was a recent one.
A lot of plastic food containers, and I see, was it McDonald's or Burger King today, so they can't get bags.
Mhm.
The paper bags that they have, they can't get them. And it's like, well, that's an interesting problem to have when you have, locations everywhere.
Yeah, and so the problem with buying out of country is the shipping becomes very bizarre. And I agree. I forget with who it was
We kind
a
of
short
got
time
used
ago.
to that on demand where, things move fast and suddenly they're not moving fast.
Yeah, gold miner there. Yeah, the shipping. The last bit of Eco Goldex we got, the shipping was over 2/3 of the product cost.
Ouch.
Oh yeah, he's not joking. It's insanely pricey. In the small sample size that I got initially, I'm pretty sure that the shipping cost was like 3 times the product cost. Electric excavators
Yep,
with
they are.
batteries.
Yep, just like the forklifts.
Oh my
Believe it or
God.
not, they are.
Yeah. Better be potato dirt and not too long a ditch. Got an
And
extension
there's a
cord.
couple companies now that actually have them. They're using them.
Okay, let's see. How much does it cost to buy a gas generator, hang it on the back with a rectifier, and plug it in so you can charge the batteries continuously while you're working? Oh my goodness. Yeah. Yeah. So shipping has gotten very weird lately.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to get weirder as time goes on here. Yeah, Chris, underground, it would
Yeah.
make a lot of sense.
That's what I thought. Is that there's a use for something like that. It might not be in your everyday digging, but there could be a pretty good use for something like that.
Yeah, well, they've had mining equipment with cords
Yeah,
for a while.
Yeah,
You know, they
they
have
run electrical cords. and
reels
reel up.
that
Yeah.
reel up and go back and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, running an umbilical would be a pain in the butt. However, anytime you really need a break, an extended break, it's pretty easy to accomplish. I had a coworker one time that used to run a rope shovel, you know, the big steam
Yep.
shovels with the
Yep.
cables.
Yeah.
And he said, you know, if it was like on graveyard shift and he was really tired or this, that, or the other, he'd just give it too much crowd into the bank and just snap the cable.
Then he could get a day off.
Oh, wait, no, that wasn't it.
Get a day off.
He would give it slack in the cable and the bail pulley would come back down and pinch
chop
the
it
cable between it and the bucket. Yep. Exactly, Terry.
Yeah, well.
Yep. So, yeah, one thing you got to watch out for with operators is they learn how to break the equipment when they want to. That's a fairly common skill that's acquired over time. All I got to do is do this. One time I was, and this is something I couldn't do all the time. You know how hard rock has to be to stop a 992C dead in its tracks? I mean, just no give.
Yeah.
Pretty hard.
Yeah.
Well, I was coming in, I was mucking some pretty hard rock, and there was and I came into the bank articulated, hit something, and the peak pressure on that cylinder just blew the hydraulic line. And I'm like, what the heck is, and I look, and there's this fountain of hydraulic fluid all over the back
I've
of
seen
the.
that with an excavator before too.
Hey, Pedro, how's it
Dumps
going?
about 50 gallons of hydraulic fluid in about a third of a second.
Yeah. Yeah, that was about 100 gallons on the ground before I could get it shut off.
Yeah, that's always makes for a good afternoon.
I think 992C has 125 or 175 gallons of hydraulic fluid.
Yeah, and with a 1 inch or inch and a half line, you can lose it all real fast.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and then your deck plates are slippery as Jesus. You got to get that all washed off.
The windows are coated.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's not just a mess, it's a dangerous
The
mess.
exhaust is smoking.
Oh, yeah. But anyhow, so I say we're, let's see, 7:16. When are you going to come up, little one?
How about 7:30?
Okay. Yeah. One time I was on a grader, 14G, and I was just grading a dump. So I'm in third gear, you know, just sweeping a windrow across the dump. And I was just kind of idle, and all of a sudden that blade hooked a rock and just boom, jumped like this and then kept on rolling. And I mean, my gut was sore from the seatbelt. Like, man, I'm glad I was wearing it or I'd been through that windshield, then it got run over because the machine kept rolling. I mean, it bounced over it. Wow.
I had a 12-foot wing on my 12 for snow.
Uh-huh.
Well, they're all fine and dandy, but yeah, when you're up in third or fourth gear going down the road blowing snow back and that
There's a tree
wing's up,
stump.
no, you catch a freaking high road approach.
Uh-huh.
And if the ground isn't frozen, you know, if it's frozen, the wing will ride up and over it. But if it plows into the dirt, it'll spin the road grader. It'll tear it right off the road. You'll do a right-hand turn, but it'll wake you up.
Okay, Argonaut has a good question. Is claim jumping a criminal or civil offense?
Civil offense.
There you go. I thought it was civil offense.
Yep, it's a civil offense because it's the claim owner has to file the charges against. It's a civil offense.
Well, Chris says it can
Well,
be
it
both.
probably could be if they were on your claim and taking gold, and if the value of the gold is, you know, over possibly $1,000, depends on where you're at there. You know what the limits are for a criminal
Oh, and then Chris also brings up if they file false documents, that could also be.
That would be criminal,
Yeah.
possibly too.
Of course, if you're a Democrat,
But, you know,
nothing's
if
criminal.
if you can prove that they stole 2 ounces of gold or something of value from your property, from your mineral interest, then it's criminal. I mean, that's no different than stealing your car.
Yeah, I think overstaking your claim is probably a civil offense,
That's civil.
but removing anything becomes theft. Yeah.
Yeah, I believe that, Chris. I think here in Montana it actually is too. I'll have to check on that, but I believe it is a felony.
I wonder what the penalties still on the books are. It's hard to
It
tell
might be
sometimes.
hanging here.
Yeah, I was going to say they never got around to
I've got
changing
some
it.
articles where guys got in gunfights up here and killed each other over arguing on a claim line.
Yeah.
I mean, it has happened.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure it's happened. I mean, hell, people shoot each other over a 6-pack of beer sometimes.
Yeah.
It's the most insane stuff. Testosterone, alcohol, gunpowder, very bad.
Argonaut, not here. If somebody holds the mineral rights, on a mining claim, you can't pick up a rock on that claim and you violated that law.
Correct.
So you can hunt on it, you can have access to pass through it because of how our national forest and stuff works, but you cannot legally pick up a rock because that's you're taking it could be a mineral.
Yeah, it's just like somebody's not allowed to walk into your front yard and take anything.
Yeah.
If you got no fence, it's probably not trespassing, just walk across your front yard, but they're not allowed to grab anything on the way. Yeah, I would imagine, Pedro, that there's people down there are more desperate in many ways, and therefore you have to be more aggressive in defending stuff. I would also imagine it's fairly common to have armed security at operational mines to deter possible theft. Yeah, Kevin. Years ago, I don't know, like 10, 20 years ago, my brother said it was still legal to hang rustlers in Arizona.
I believe it is here in Montana too. That law is still on the books, I believe.
Yeah. He said he knew a guy that went down.
Actually, our death penalty here in Montana it can be hanging yet too.
Yeah. My brother said he was talking to a guy who went deer hunting down in Mexico. And this probably would have been 30, 40 years ago. And it was on a big ranch. And he was being guided by a couple of ranch hands. And they came across some guys that had poached a cow. And he says, they just strung them up right there.
Yeah. Well, that's
says,
how it works.
We're going to take them. He said, no, their families will find them. They know the rules.
Yeah.
You get caught, you get dead. Yeah, I agree, Pedro. Thieves cost a lot of productivity everywhere. Yeah, look at how much the casinos spend on security.
Yeah.
But if they didn't, it would cost them even more.
Yeah.
Yep. So let me do a little bit of a recap before Eva comes on, just to let you all know what we've been doing. Jim here has been out there at his project with some company people that things are going pretty well.
Yeah, we're moving forward here. So if hopefully we have a contract here fairly soon and then move ahead.
Yep.
And I talked to the government about our permit issue that we have had ongoing, and they're still dragging their feet. They always have an excuse. Well, right now they've been so tied up with the fire season that.
Look what Pedro said there. Some mines have more security personnel than actual workers.
I believe that in some cases.
Yeah. I, on the other hand, have got that tailings pad completed. or almost complete. Got about 1 more hour work to do. I've got about 100 gallons or more of pregnant solution from the cement mixer leaching. And this week I'll be putting together the initial test cell for the electrolytic recovery, and we'll start playing some games there. And unfortunately, I can't reach Chris by cell phone from where I'm going to be running the cell. I may actually have to bring it here just because of the communications and stuff. We'll see what happens. The system I've come up with should be perfectly portable to here. I don't see a problem with that. And so I'll be doing the electrolytic recovery testing, and assuming that goes well, then trying to recover the gold off of the cathode. We have a lot of possibilities, looking for simplicity and efficiency and low cost, and batting around some stuff tonight. We come up with a couple ideas that may improve that. We'll see. It's very much a SpaceX kind of way of developing things, where you try something, see what goes wrong, adjust, try it again, see what else goes wrong, adjust, continue, and until you got something that works. While I don't intend to be nearly as spectacular as they can be, I do intend to be as successful in my little niche as they are. So working on that right now, and as Jim can tell you, I'm working on other milling things like grinding and agitation leach tanks and everything else, because the next scale up from this is going from about 100 pounds a batch to about 1,000 pounds a batch. And
that's going to be a big jump to
oh yeah,
play with.
it's going to be big jumps. And if anyone sees any conical bottom plastic tanks,
I know they make them
of about 4 foot diameter, you know, who manufactures those? Fiberglass would be fine too.
Yeah, fiberglass would work too.
Even if it was carbon steel, it would work, but it wouldn't be nearly as portable. But yeah, if you can send me an email, I'm looking for about 4 foot diameter, about 8 foot tall, could be a little more, you know, or less, etc., but somewhere around that range. Basically something you could set in the back of a pickup truck on its side. I could use something like that for the next stage. But that's what I've been doing. We just done a little bit work at the mine. Yeah, with stands.
Yeah.
Been doing a little work at the mine, getting things few more stages ready for production. Not at this time, Kevin. We're focusing right now on the leaching and the agitation more than the solid liquid separation at the moment. I have never worked in a copper gold placer mine. Now, Jim here has done gold placer
but
mining.
I've never had the copper.
Copper would be
I
kind of
know
like
that-
the tin around
Yeah,
here.
it'd be interesting to learn a little bit more about that.
Yeah, Kevin, electrolysis, pretty much as long as you get above a certain voltage, you're there. But with the kind of electrowinning we're doing, it needs to be kind of precise voltage to get the best results. Yeah, I know the totes you're talking about, but they're not conical bottom. And that's what I want, a bottom like that, so that as you suck the slurry off the bottom and move it up to the top, more solids will work themselves down. So that's why I want a conical bottom. 45 degree would probably work. 60 degree would probably work a little better, but take a little more height to do what I need. But yeah, that's basically what I'm doing. In the next stage is somewhere around a 4 to 5 foot diameter tank, 6 to 8 feet tall completely. Hey, how's it going, Flower Gold Wizards? Jason, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
believe So
Yeah, Jason. Oh, by the way, I saw Gruber Ned got your black poison and made a video on it this week too. That's some tough stuff. Got to give you kudos on that. That was fun.
some fun material to play with there.
Okay, David, send me an email at hardrocku@outlook.com, and I'll see what we can get together on. So let's say we'll let y'all ride along and look over our shoulders while we're doing all this fun stuff here, and hopefully do it in a way that's informative enough that you could kind of duplicate it if needed. No problem, David. Well, I'm hoping to find something that's essentially local. You get something that goes to like Tractor Supply or something like that. Might not be too bad. And there's other ways of getting stuff besides having it shipped. You can go pick it up yourself sometimes, depending upon where they're at. I will, Chris.
Okay.
All right, we're going to give it over to Eva.
No, I didn't see the Wendigo yet.
Wendigo. Oh.
Heyo. Howdy. Well, as we've all noticed, there was a minor crazy crash in the gold market that we will be getting to. And also, for those who are interested in some very detailed and very disturbing videos about the illness and the treatments for said illness and the shots for said illness that nobody is supposed to talk about, you want to go to Conservative Treehouse. Because Conservative Treehouse, thanks to now being on their own personal own servers due to being banned from WordPress for telling the truth, has some extremely disturbing videos from actual professionals with massive numbers of magic pieces of paper and letters after their names and things that are, well, they're disturbing and they're very important. So you want to go to Conservative Treehouse for that, since obviously we don't discuss it here because, as we all know, the vaccines are wonderful, they're perfect, they're miraculous, they're life-saving, and everyone has to get the jab. Not happening here. Not happening. Sorry. Hi, smoking. Well, the hat makes me smile too, honey bunny. And just so you know, I already am working on a full line of tinfoil hatware that I'm going to be making. So I will be debuting over time other amazing one-of-a-kind creations in the realm of tinfoil hat. Now, if anyone knows where to get a hold of some actual tin foil as opposed to aluminum foil, there is a difference. I would like some tin foil to play with, but that's for another day.
The union at Caserones copper mine in Chile is to strike after talks collapse. Now, mind you, there are several other strikes going on in the works that will affect over 7% of the world's copper resources. So this is interesting news here. Workers at JX Nippon Copper's Caserones mine in Chile will walk off the job beginning Tuesday after last-ditch talks over a collective labor contract collapsed on Monday, the union said. The government-mediated negotiations have gone nowhere, the union said, prompting its members to agree to the strike. It has not been possible to reach an agreement since the company has stated there is no more budget in this negotiation, and therefore it's not in a position to deliver a new offer, the union said in a statement. Several mines in the world top copper producer Chile are in the throes of tense labor negotiations, including BHP's sprawling Escondida and Codelco's Andina, at a time when supply is already tight, leaving markets on edge. So, yeah, copper mining could get very interesting going forward.
Yeah, Chris, I have an idea on that.
We can expect copper prices to go up. Well, this is interesting. A Gates-backed firm, that would be Bill Gates, you know, the guy behind vaccine technology and fake meat, which, by the way, some interesting health concerns have come out about that fake meat, but I don't know whether we're allowed to talk about that either. You might want to look it up. Gates-backed firm joins Blue Jay on a battery metals quest. This is good. Cobalt Metals, a startup backed by a coalition of billionaires, including Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos. Oh, great. So it's not just Gates who's a problem, it's Bezos who's a problem anyway. Has partners with Britain's Blue Jay Mining to explore for critical materials used in electric vehicles in Greenland. Cobalt, which uses artificial intelligence and machine learning to help find key minerals for green technologies, will pay $15 million in exploration funding for the Disco Nuswak project on Greenland's west coast in exchange for a 51% stake in the project, Blue Jay said in the statement. Shares in Blue Jay Mining skyrocketed on the news, trading up 25% in London at £11.64 by midday local time. This is the highest the stock has traded since February 19th, when it hit £11.09. It leaves the exploration company with projects in Greenland and Finland in a market capitalization of £113.23 million. That's about $157 million for those of us who speak American. The Disco Nusok license holds metals such as nickel, copper, cobalt, and platinum, and Cobalt's funding will cover evaluation and initial drilling. Blue Jay said previous studies have found the area in western Greenland resembles the geology of Russia's Norilsk region, a main producer of nickel and palladium. This agreement is transformative for Blue Jay CEO Bo Stensgaard said. Cobalt is an organization with the heft and technical capability to grow this project to its full commercial credentials. Cobalt's backers include big names such as venture capital firm Andreessen Horowitz and Breakthrough Energy Ventures. The latter is financed by well-known billionaires including Michael Bloomberg, Ray Dalio, Richard Branson, as well as Amazon founder Jeff Bezos and Microsoft co-founder Bill Gates. Cobalt, as its chief executive officer Kurt House has stated multiple times, does not intend to be a mine operator ever. The company is focused on searching for battery metals, a quest that began last year in Canada. It acquired rights to an area of about 1,000 square kilometers in northern Quebec, just south of Glencore's Raglan nickel mine. Cobalt aims to create a Google Maps of the Earth's crust with a special focus on finding cobalt deposits. It collects and analyzes multiple streams of data from old drilling results to satellite imagery to better understand where new deposits might be found. Algorithms applied to the data collected determine the geological patterns that indicate a potential deposit of cobalt, which occurs naturally alongside nickel and copper. The California-based firm also expects to bring in other investors, potentially including its current backers, on a deposit-by-deposit basis. It will seek mining-savvy partners once it has identified an interesting project. Now, that is rather interesting that they're looking at making a Google Maps of minerals. One wonders if this could be applied to other minerals like gold or silver. That would be an interesting little thing that might come out of this at some point. Not that I trust our billionaire class to do anything reasonable, because we all know they are not reasonable people. Copper price falls as China's import volumes drop by over 10%. Now, this is kind of interesting and rather odd, but it sort of makes sense. Copper prices fell to their lowest in more than 2 weeks on Monday as a firm dollar and demand worries weighed on sentiment. Copper for delivery in September fell 1.4%, Friday's settlement price touching $4.28.5 a pound, or $9,427 per ton, on the COMEX market in New York. China's January to July copper import volumes dropped by more than a tenth compared with the first 7 months of 2020. The biggest copper buyer in the world bought 3.219 million tons of unrocked copper and copper products from January to July, down 10.6% compared with the same period in 2020. The dollar is one factor behind the selling, and the other is Chinese demand, one copper trader told Reuters, adding the rising risks of a strike at the Escondido mine helped contain losses. Refined copper production by China's major smelters was little changed in July from the previous month, state-backed research house Anteki said on Monday. The 22 smelters surveyed by Anteki churned out 747,200 tons of copper cathodes last month, up slightly from 745,700 tons in June and up 7.7% year on year. China's factory activity expanded in July at the slowest pace in 17 months, with the official Purchasing Managers Index easing from 50.4 to 50.4 from 50.9 in June, remaining above the 50-point level that separates growth from contraction. Industrial metals are increasingly feeling the weight of a synchronized slowing in U.S. and Chinese growth, TD security analyst led by Bart Melek said in a note. Wow, he wrote a note. Yes, I have seen that, David. I have seen some anecdotal reports on the issue. David's talking about large realtors claiming ground in your area and selling them for big dollars. It's bad in Colorado, apparently. I have seen some uptick in the sales of mining claims, because I do look at sites that sell mining claims and patenting claims, and I see the usual shady suspects whose name shall not be mentioned here because we all know they're shady and that would be rude anyway. But I have also noticed more and more non-mining shady suspects are getting into wholesale claiming mining claims and selling the claims, which is a little bizarre. There's a lot of things going on in the real estate market right now in general. As we all know, what with the eviction moratoriums that are going back and forth everywhere, a lot of small landlords are finding themselves being bought out by major companies. And this is going for all kinds of land, not just rental land, but other land that people are buying and holding for speculation. Bill Gates is now the largest private farmland owner in the United States, which is absolutely ridiculous. But I have indeed noticed on some of the mining claim sites a lot more randos popping up selling mining claims. Some of these are nickel and dime claims. People that are looking to score a quick $2,000 or something. Others are large parcels of claims that are being put up by various real estate consortiums. And still others are the usual suspects that are already in our business, the ones that make the slick, fancy YouTube videos that usually do not live up to their promise, so to speak. So it is something to keep an eye on out there. And also keep an eye on people that may be wanting to buy your claims out of the blue for no reason whatsoever, because I have seen a whole lot of people popping up that apparently know nothing about mining, judging by the comments they're making in forums. They're being shut down in various forums and on Reddit because they're like, hey, I want to buy a mining claim. And they know nothing about mining. They're just looking for any mining claim. Somebody who's just looking for any mining claim and does not know anything about mining is probably looking to flip it to a sucker. So this would not be a good time to sell your claims either. But basically, that's where we are in the mining world at the moment. Now, everybody probably noticed that the price of gold kind of went a little bit downhill this week. And there is a lot of speculation as to why that is happening. So we're going to take a look and see what we can find in a hurry here. But before we do, we're going to take a look at an article from Money Metals. Bullion investors hang tight. The precious metals futures market launched shortly after Richard Nixon closed the gold window and removed the last vestige of gold backing from the Federal Reserve note. Officials introduced paper gold and silver contracts specifically to increase price volatility and discourage physical ownership of metals. After nearly 50 years, it is safe to say their strategy was a success. It is often excruciating to own metal when the short-run price action is completely disconnected from fundamentals. The price smash in the last couple of trading days is a case in point. Nobody can make a coherent fundamental case for the move lower. It is best to simply remember that there are very good reasons to own physical metal even when it feels like you're being punished for doing the right thing. The Federal Reserve and Wall Street bankers want you to buy stocks and bonds. Their fingers are always on the scale. That is why the equity markets are at all-time highs despite extraordinary amounts of uncertainty and rising dependence on artificial government stimulus. Wall Street banks have at times operated as criminal enterprises. Oh, really?
Shocked.
Who would have thought? I'm shocked. Shocked, I tell you. The Fed and other regulators enable them to rig markets by making sure very little is investigated. When fraud is proven, they make sure the punishment never fits the crime. These people blow the bubbles. When the bubbles pop, they bail themselves out with taxpayer money and leave the rest of America holding the bag. They didn't apologize in 2008, and they won't apologize when the next financial crisis wipes trillions of dollars of values from investors' net worths. The banking cabal does not have America's best interest at heart, which is reason in and of itself to reject their advice and buy metal. There are, of course, other good reasons. Gold and silver are assets which are guaranteed to be valuable tomorrow, next year, and next decade. This will be true regardless of whatever happens in the world. There are very few assets with a track record as a store of value which stretches back thousands of years. Another reason is paper money always dies. The U.S. dollar's reign as world reserve currency is long in the tooth, and the greenback looks set to lose its privileged status in the years ahead. Sound incredible? We understand. The dollar is one of the most basic institutions in America, and it's hard to imagine life without it. Yet the case is simple. Consider two truths. The dollar is no longer backed by anything but confidence, the belief that a dollar accepted by one person today will be accepted by someone else tomorrow. The other truth is this confidence is falling. People are waking up to a grim reality. Confidence in the federal government and the dollar is in rapid decline. Here is something else to consider. Coins, rounds, and bars are private, portable, and off the grid. It is possible to put $1 million of gold coins in a suitcase and travel anywhere in the world. When you arrive, those coins can quickly and easily be converted into the local currency. You don't need permission, you don't need the banking system, and if properly done, bureaucrats can't stop you. Another good reason to own metal is the lack of counterparty risk. Recent developments here in the U.S. highlight just how important and rare it is to find an asset whose value is independent of all third parties. Although it is not portable or liquid, real estate is another great tangible asset with a long history as a store of value. However, investment property owners rely on tenants to pay rent and governments to enforce contracts. This isn't happening at the moment. The Centers for Disease Control of all agencies has unilaterally claimed the authority to impose a moratorium on evictions. Unelected health officials with no statutory authority whatsoever are forbidding property owners from kicking out tenants who can't or won't pay rent. Should the U.S. drift further into collectivism, it is easy to imagine a punitive wealth tax on property owners or private property being confiscated outright by governments. Lastly, it is important to note that precious metals do perform well over the long term, even if it often doesn't feel that way in the short term. 2 years ago, silver was priced below $15 an ounce. 20 years ago, it was under $5 an ounce. Gold has outperformed stocks over the past 2 decades. Anyone buying or holding is doing fine. So take heart when precious metals fall. Remember why you bought in the first place. There are bigger and more important reasons to own them, whether prices move higher or lower in the days ahead. Which is good advice. This is actually a great time to buy. So if you can find it, this is a great time to buy. Finding it is still very, very, very difficult. As to where it is, it ended up at $1,733.80 as a final. Silver ended up at $23.51 as a final. Platinum at $979. Palladium at $2,542, and rhodium at $18,200. I'd like to get some of that, but it is not easy to find other than what's plated on jewelry. Now let's take a look at our guys over on Zero Hedge, since they decided to talk about the gold issue and the making sense of last night's flash crash. Basically, last night was uneventful in every market except precious metals, with gold being the focus point. In the liquidity void that follows the resumption of futures trading, in which the U.S. saw futures trade modestly lower, a sudden burst of selling in gold futures contracts sent gold prices plunging to as low as $1,677, or almost $100 lower from the Friday close at $1,761.50. Together with Friday's post-payroll plunge, this has been the biggest two-day drop in gold in dollar terms since the March 2020 crash. However, unlike Friday, when gold moved in response to the spike in the dollar and the surge in yields, there was no offsetting move in any securities after the futures reopened. The 10-year traded back over 1.3%, but the move was orderly. When over 4 billion notional, or some 24,000 contracts, were suddenly and furiously dumped in a completely price indiscriminate manner, whose apparent intention was to nuke the entire bid stack. While there's no news or even pair trade correlation catalyst behind the move, technicians noted a death cross along a technical breach of US 1750 an ounce for gold, which triggered liquidation stops to the downside. So apparently,
Hello, Anders.
this was a planned move.
Must be early morning over there.
Why it was a planned move, if you want to know, you'd want to go listen to the Gold Fix broadcast over on Zero Hedge, because Gold Fix is a very good analysis broadcast to watch. It's not one I don't get a chance. It's not one I get a chance to watch very often, but it is worth looking into. And Zero Hedge also had this to say: did gold just give us a taste of what's coming for stock? Gold collapsed overnight, dropping over $100 an ounce as some $4 billion worth of gold contracts were sold. The precious metal has since rebounded, but the impact of the drop has done considerable technical damage to the precious metal. This kind of panic selling has investors asking, are stocks next? One of the key drivers of stock prices since the March 2020 bottom has been the Fed's intervention. The Fed spent a total of $3 trillion between March and June. How they managed to do that without even passing a budget or a reconciliation or anything is beyond me, but they did it. They spent $3 trillion in 3 months. Oh, I wouldn't have minded getting some of that, but it briefly dipped between June and July 2020, but has since increased at a steady pace courtesy of the Fed's $120 billion per month quantitative easing program. As I write Monday morning, the Fed's balance sheet is now north of $8.2 trillion, according to Fred. That's a lot of zeros. However, all signs point to the Fed's reducing these interventions going forward. With job numbers like those from July, 900,000 plus jobs were created. What they didn't tell you was a lot of those were part-time jobs, federal jobs, seasonal jobs, and minimum wage jobs. So the unemployment rate down to 5.4% again, and inflation roaring, the CPI clocking in at over 5%. Well, if you use the old math that they threw out because it was too depressing, the CPI is probably north of 14% right now, by the way. The Fed is effectively out of reasons to continue its month interventions at the current pace. Add to this fact that numerous Fed officials are calling for a taper to QE and even rate hikes, and it's clear the Fed is on the verge of announcing it will be reducing its money printing very soon. Yeah. Announcing they reduce it. Actually reducing it, we do have to wonder about, since we're seeing fewer and fewer figures coming out of the federal government to prove it. This would mean stocks losing considerable support from the Fed. Again, the Fed has spent over $4 trillion supporting the market since March 2020, but by the look of things, that will be ending soon. So is the collapse in gold a taste of what's coming for stocks shortly when the Fed finally takes off the training wheels? We'll soon find out. So you might want to keep an eye on that issue. And also keep an eye on what our Congress critters are doing. It does not take too much deep digging to find out which funds our various Congress critters have their money invested in. So a thinking person might consider the idea of doing that digging, finding out where Pelosi's husband, Pelosi, and the other Congress critters invest their blind trusts, and following what those guys are doing. Because, quite frankly, when you take a look at our Congress critters' records for picking winning stocks, their records far beat anyone else's anywhere ever in history. It's phenomenal how we managed to elect so many near 100% accurate stock pickers. They can't do anything else, but boy, do they know how to make money once they get in office. And of course, insider trading may or may not have something to do with that, but that's one of those things, rules for them, but not for us kind of things. Now, in the rest of the world, I don't know if anybody else has noticed this, but here in good old Helena, our gas has gone up 5 cents a gallon every week for the last 3 weeks. This week it stayed stable, but yes, gas prices are on the rise. We're also seeing a lot more bizarre shortages here and there. Today, when I was in my local Wally World, making money on my micro app, I was on my Shopkick app, and I was doing my kicks and scanning stuff and getting points. By the way, Bear and I are already kicking butt on this one. Less than a week into it, we've got almost $25. But well,
I just drive.
Actually, me. He just drives and makes encouraging noises, but I like to include him when I do the important things.
I'm the chauffeur, security, and the self-propelled wallet.
Mm-hmm. And the self-propelled wallet does a really good job, I will tell you that. They were down to exactly 2 containers of ratio yogurt. It's quite bizarre. As a matter of fact, there were a whole lot of yogurt offerings that were empty, and I happened to snare myself an employee walking by, and I'm like, "Hey, are you guys in the middle of stocking the yogurt?" And he said, "No, we don't have any in the back right now." I didn't ask any more questions, but I did find that interesting. Also, it turns out that there was exactly 1 plastic plant in the country, apparently. And that 1 plastic plant either blew up, melted down, caught on fire. Something happened to it. The same thing that happened to our one and only chlorine bleach factory in the entire country. So there's now chlorine gas factory in the entire country. So in the space of a couple of weeks, we managed to lose 2 one and only factories. 1 for all manner of household plastics and 5-gallon buckets like my Bear buys every time he goes to Power Townsend because we need them for mining. And 1 that produces swimming pool cleaners, household bleach, several other bleach-based products, and a bunch of other things. So you can expect those things to become more pricey or to suddenly disappear. If you think you'll be needing plastic things in the future, you might want to look for them now, because who knows what's going to happen next. I mean, obviously China probably has 17,000 plastic factories, but as we all know, products from Panda Land are made with unethical labor and made in environmentally disastrous conditions, and they are vastly lower in quality than they should be. And quite frequently, in the case of things like dog food and children's toys and other things that affect those near and dear to us, Chinese products are actually dangerous. So, just something to keep in mind here, that we lost two one and only factories in the space of 2 weeks in seemingly unrelated incidents, just randomly out of the blue, that were never even discussed on mainstream news other than like a 3-second blurb here or there that was, nothing to worry about here. Kind of like that scene in Harry Potter where the Minister of Magic shows up in the British Prime Minister's office and says, "Oh yeah, just to let you know, we're bringing a Sphinx into the country for the Triwizard Games. Bye." So that kind of thing going on here. You got to wonder about these people. I also noticed that the unit price on toilet paper has increased almost 30% in the last 4 months. So if you don't already have 6 months of TP on hand, you might consider buying it before it becomes more expensive than printer paper and almost as expensive as silver when you look at the per unit cost here. In terms of toilet paper, is very, very pricey these days. Yeah, what happened to all the riots and city burnings? You got to wonder about that, David. They just kind of,
It's coming again.
they're still happening in some places. They're still happening in Portland on a fairly regular basis, but naturally, since most of the state of Oregon is under a forest fire right now, we're not hearing about the nearly daily riots. So, yeah, Patrick, Rand Paul was doing some good stuff. Rand Paul has put out a couple of really good speeches lately. He has finally got on the stump, and he is fully 100% against face diapers. And being a doctor, I actually trust him because, it's not like any of the other Congress critters, or very few of the Congress critters are anything other than lawyers, And we all know that a lawyer is the least trustworthy person on the planet. So Rand Paul, one of his speeches is also on the Conservative Treehouse. You will always find Conservative Treehouse to be a good source for what's actually going on in DC because people talk about it over there. And yes, David, it is election time coming up. How this election goes is going to be anyone's guess at this point. I am making no guesses. I made sure that we were registered to vote here in Montana, and we will be voting in person in Montana. And I'm still wrestling with the state of Arizona to make sure that I'm no longer listed as a registered voter there. I'm going to have to check their website again this month, and if they have once again failed to remove Bear and I as residents, I'm going to have to get rude with them. I had to get rude with the state of Washington the same way for some reason. It took me mailing in 3 of those little blue cards they give you before they decided that I really wasn't intending on voting in their state anymore. And they have 100% mail-in voting. It's obviously a coincidence. It must be a coincidence.
Are you certain you're not still voting in Washington?
Yes, I have triple checked that I am still not voting in Washington. Well, David, you're not the only person who is saying that you're going to do that, though I must say that is an illegal strategy. Of course, it doesn't stop Democrats any, but it is an illegal strategy to vote as many times as you can. I will be very good, and I will say that is a completely and totally illegal strategy. The tinfoil hat does not recommend it, but lots of people are planning on doing that, especially if this mail-in voting thing sticks and people are getting piles of ballots in their mailbox. I mean, that's just something that's going to happen. Yep, Mr. Lodak, I am very familiar with the Fibonacci sequence. God speaks Fibonacci. The universe runs on math, and I love Fibonacci. The only thing I love more than Fibonacci sequences is the intricacies of Pascal's triangle. Oh, I saw a beautiful video on that the other day. It's just wonderful stuff.
What am I, chopped liver?
Yeah, Mr. Virtue, I'm sure a lot of people will. Well, yeah, Terry. Lawyers have this thing, it's really weird, called billable hours. I talked to a lawyer who was actually proud to announce that he had billed 407 billable hours in 1 week. So there doesn't seem to be a relationship between billable hours and the actual number of hours in a week. Or if it is, it's some sort of a weird multiple that I don't understand. If anybody understands how lawyers actually do billable hours, I'd like to know, because I'm just kind of curious as to how you can do 407 hours worth of work all by yourself. That didn't include the ones his paralegals billed.
That's the number of hours in a week.
Yeah, I know there's 168 hours in a week. He billed 407 alone, not including what his paralegals billed. And it's like, well, how you did 407 hours worth of work in a 160-hour week is beyond me. But it's quite a wreck.
There's a difficulty factor adjustment there.
Yeah, it's got to be like hiking, Well, actually, Patrick, if I could find a lawyer, you never know with lawyers. You really don't.
You start with actual hours times the difficulty factor to achieve billable hours.
Actually, I thought it was you start with actual hours, then you multiply it by the size of your client's bank account and just how much trouble he would be in if he fired you. And then you end up at the appropriate figure.
I don't know, you
That's
might be
just a
right.
guess on my part. But in other news, as I said, I am just toddling along on my micro earning sites, and Bear here has already managed to spend, would you believe, he already spent $78 worth of money on Amazon that I earned. He spent $78 worth of my gift cards, got it back as cash. So I bought myself a book. I haven't bought a new book in forever, but you see, I bought this new book because it happened to be on sale, and I got a 950 point rebate. So the book actually only cost me like $1.35 when I get the money back. So, Yeah. Well, I have thought, Mr. Lodak, I have looked long and hard at the blockchain as a voting source. And the problems I have with it are very simple, practical ones. First of all, we can still do one man, one vote with a paper ballot and purple ink on a finger. It works in countries with a population much larger than ours. There's no reason it couldn't work here. And I would much prefer to see a human being with a human ID standing in front of me and signing a human signature on a voter book in front of me to prove that they are actually who they are. Second, I do worry about things like the internet going down, because I do not trust people. I am something of a cynic in my old age here. And considering all the technical glitches we had in the most secure election in all of history here recently, I certainly don't want to commend the fate of our voting system to even more tech stuff, more electronic stuff, more internet stuff, more data cloud stuff going on here. I would prefer a nice paper ballot, a nice black pen, a signature, and an ID, and purple ink on my finger. Because that way you cannot get dead people. You cannot get illegal aliens usually. You cannot get people more than once. And every single piece of paper is available. There should be very, very little mail-in voting going on anyway. I mean, mail-in voting is fine for military. But other than that, if you cannot get your happy butt back to your state of residence one day every 2 years, then is it really your state of residence? I have to wonder about that. I really do. Dirty Goat, we kind of sort of looked at why gold crashed. There was a $4 billion sell-off over the space of about 10 minutes in the middle of the night on gold futures that crashed the price about $100.
If you believe,
Now, if you go to Zero Hedge, they have a program called the Gold Fix where they do deep dive analysis on this stuff, and they apparently devoted an entire program to it. But this is the same kind of blatant manipulation that you saw with GameStop stocks and that you see hedge fund traders doing on a regular basis. So there is a reason behind it. I do not personally know the reason.
well, on the open, Sunday night on the open of the markets, 25,000 paper contracts hit the market, which is equivalates It's equivalent to 75 tons of gold. And if you think 75 true tons of gold moved in the market instantaneously, I would
Yeah.
absolutely say no way in hell. So it was shorter. They're getting out of their short contracts while they still can.
Now, my tinfoil hat theory here, by the way,
Ooh.
is the guys that hold the paper gold that is sitting out there naked and short, hanging in the breeze, may be coming close to their shorts.
Naked and short?
Yeah.
Not me.
And so they need physical gold to back this stuff up. And one of the ways that you can get physical gold is to do like you do with any stock. You drive the price down, you panic people into selling it, and then you take the physical gold and you keep it. Now that's just a tinfoil hat theory going on here. You know, I'm sure there is more to it than that. But this was a simple price maneuver that was done deliberately by a party or group of parties because it was done after hours in a huge block. Whenever you see anything happening after hours in a huge block, it's hedge funds, it's brokerage firms, it's not ordinary people, and it's not real. They're acting for some reason that is not germane to those of us who actually are smart enough to hold our gold in our hands rather than on a piece of paper that could get burned up or isn't worth anything anyway. Yeah, naked shorts hanging in the breeze. That's exactly what's going on, smoking joking. I mean, these people,
Film at 11.
there is a veritable forest of shorts out there between stocks and gold and silver and everything else. There is a veritable forest. We will never have a shortage of shorts, and they're all naked. I mean, that the vast majority of them are naked. That's why they're called shorts, I think.
Yeah, Kevin, same thing. It would drive me crazy, but she's enjoying it, which right now has a benefit all by itself.
Kevin, I
And it
have to
does
tell
work.
you, I do not work all that hard at all. When we're in the store, it takes me maybe an extra 10 minutes. Putting together my shopping list takes me maybe an extra 5 minutes. Now, slamming the surveys takes some time, but I am in luck right now because as far as my survey profile is concerned, I am a Jewish, moderate, independent voter who voted for somebody other than Trump the first time and voted for Trump the second time. So all the political surveys I qualify for. Yeah, they don't pay nearly as much as stapler surveys, toilet paper surveys, automobile surveys, or commercial surveys. However, when you can do 3 or 4 political surveys a day and you get to tell people, yeah, Biden sucks, rocks. And by the way, public service announcement, Arizona sucks, rocks too. I bet you didn't know that.
By the way, she also gets like 3,000 steps a day in the air conditioning. So she gets her exercise by shopping. Now, most women would find that to be an excellent gym membership sort of thing.
Well,
Get
the
paid
thing
to go
is, I
shopping.
don't actually like the shopping. I like the scavenger hunt. I like finding the product on the shelf and scanning it, and then I do a little survey that asks me if I'm planning to buy it today, and I say yes or no, or would I consider buying it in the next month, yes or no? Had I even heard of the product before today? Sometimes you get a survey in the middle of it, sometimes you don't. But it's like, yeah, it's cool. I get to walk all over the place in the air conditioning, and I get to scan all the grocery products I buy, and I get points for it. And I'm like, yeah, this is fun. This is cool. This is great. Well, Dirty Goat, if you got millions of tons of pay dirt and it's got gold in it, that is great. I keep telling Bear one of these days we have to get a claim so that he can actually get some pay dirt and so that he can actually put together some pay dirt. But he's too busy doing leaching and weird things with electrolytic cells. I mean, I don't know too many other women who can say, oh, my husband was building electrolytic cells in the kitchen the other day. You know, it's just one of those things. But anyway, that is all for this week. If you see any shortages and any weird stuff, drop Bear a note And I'm going to start keeping a track of the weirder shortages that are going on. Because there's all kinds in there. Oh, stupid sweats. But anyway, that is all for this week, people. And everybody have a wonderful week. Remember, buy GameStop, old GameStop. Arizona Sex Rocks. And if you find any physical gold or silver, let us know what the premium is in your area, because premiums are still going up everywhere. I'm hearing reports of 60% or more from small dealers, which is a little bit ridiculous. Later, guys.
Sounds about right, Kevin. Bunch of thank yous, little one.
You're welcome.
I saw you drawing on some stuff there. Were you?
Well, last Monday night when I wasn't here, you had some questions on settling out water, for recycling water. And I thought maybe I would cover it just a little bit on some concepts with Placer.
Was that Pedro from Venezuela? Or?
No, it was somebody else. I don't remember who had the first question, but you guys talked about it some, and you did do a small drawing, but I thought we'll discuss.
Not a bad plan, David.
Tip that camera up just a hair.
Tip it up.
Yeah, just come up just a little bit. There you go. Maybe that'll work. Getting a little shadow. That might be a little bit hard to see, but I'll kind of go through it. But the question last Monday night came up from somebody about trying to settle some water. And ideally, from your wash plant, your sluice, my suggestion would be create a gravel pond or something that you can reach in and pull that gravel out occasionally for clearing. Put in a berm and run the water the most distance you can before you're pumping it back, because you'll usually get rid of most of that clay and heavy sediments in that water if you can get some distance on it.
Hey, Jason, how's it going?
Kind of another scenario here is if, even with a high banker, this could, be used, is keep your trenches small, but use a lot of a snaky trench for a good enough distance that the farther you can travel that water, and if you need to put in some curtains or something to force the water down under, you'll knock those solids out. Even if it is just a clay, fine, if you can knock it off the surface of the water a couple of times, usually you can clean that water up pretty good for recycling it. If it's more of an environmental issue, I can kind of go over what Bryce did up there. Another thing you can do is if you're pumping clean water from somewhere, you can run a bedrock drain somewhere in here over along the hillside or something that you can by the time you filter that water through your ditching system, and then you can let it dump, it'll be fairly clear, and then let the ground at that point soak it before it gets back into a creek channel or drainage. So I just thought I'd try to answer that question a little bit from last Monday night. And I liked what Bryce did up there. Dirty Goat Mining did a neat job with his up there. Get rid of this quick.
David, it'll tend to fill up at the top end fairly quickly, which is why he said you want to have it where you can remove the coarser material and gravel quickly.
Yeah, you always, in any of your ditches, you want to try to leave an area that you can get at one side of the ditch at least with a tractor backhoe or an excavator, depending on the size of the operation. I mean, if it's a high banker, you only need enough room to get in with a shovel and keep a ditch going. But so you can muck it out, and you can a lot of times pile it, in between on the ditches. You can, raise those sides and edges quite a bit for a while, depending on the elevation you've got. But a lot of times you can keep letting it fill and fill and fill, just like they do on a, big hard rock mine, a tailings pile. They just build on the pile. But what Dirty Goat did, he's got his plant, and I really kind of like how he set it up, because his sluice box is coming off. Then he's ditching it. After that, he's ditching it over into his first big pond, and then he weired it into the next pond. So he's got another pond below that one. And then what he's doing to get rid of the dirty water is running a 3-inch pump down there and pumping it up into the timber with 2 irrigation sprinklers and just spraying the woods down with dirty water. So by the time it works through the system, it's fairly clean before it ever gets back into the drainage. You're using the ground as the filter. And you could do that in some of these plasters, you could literally do that out onto a meadow, possibly onto a hay field, use an existing water ditch to take that dirty water away and put it somewhere that it's environmentally safe to do so.
So basically just using the ground as a filter, huh?
Using the ground as a filter. He's using his ponds for settling, basically, his 2 ponds. I should have put this one way down here.
Dirty Goat calls it fire mitigation.
Yeah, well, it is. It's a neat way of doing it, because with the 2 ponds in there, and then you're catching most of your settling there. And if you've got a little bit of a ditch up here, you'll pick up some of that gravel. So you always seem to need gravel around a site. Well, it works good for road gravel or around the plant to, pack in and raise the plant and things like that. So being able to clean that first ditch a little bit, or that first catch basin, is ideal for grabbing up that gravel that'll actually work as a road base or a building base.
Or something to walk on, so
Something,
it's not
right,
mud.
a path, right? So you're not, wading around in mud a foot deep.
Okay.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
That's a good idea, David. I mean, if you think out of the box a little, there is a lot of ways to mitigate what could be an issue, and it becomes a positive. It's not an issue if you deal with it right. Yeah, center pivot will work really cool.
Well, there'd probably be, in his case with biosolids, you probably have some nutrients in the water too then.
Sure.
You have to be careful what you're watering.
What level you're putting it on a given area.
Well,
I know years ago they used to treat a lot of fields around where I grew up with biosolids from the waste treatment plant. But what they found out is if they did it too many years in a row on the same pieces of land, the heavy metals picked up enough that they could read them from space. Yeah, they had to kind of decide to pick new areas and new farms every year where they could use it.
Well, that's a
Yeah,
interesting
they
complication.
had red areas on the map, infrared red areas that were the fields that they were putting the heavy metals on. Not that they meant to, it's just was a fact.
Yep.
How it worked out.
Well, that's why you gotta take into account everything, because when you're doing a mining situation, you have to cover not just reclamation, but also disposal of your tailings,
or just dirty water.
and in the case of a hard rock mine, a lot of times those tailings contain heavy metals, and that becomes a real issue.
That is a real issue.
One place you could probably do it if you had an old mine would be use it for backfill.
Right.
because it's going right
Yep.
back in the mine.
Yep. Muck it back in.
And you
somewhere.
might be able to get away with that because you're not dispersing it to the environment anywhere.
Right.
Yep. No, David, we don't. That's the government method of forestry.
Actually, I think I read an article on that today that the Forest Service new policy was pretty much let it burn at this point, because they're so manned right now with all these fires going on. We got one just not that far from here, 50 miles from here. That's 400,000 acres right now.
Well,
So it's not near what that one up in California there on the border is, but
it's amazing. Oh, I see.
yeah,
Chemically
right,
burned.
chemically, right. You just
Yep.
too much fertilizer in a way.
I would think so.
Yeah.
Too much nitrogen.
and ammonia.
Yep. Oh.
Yeah, pretty much. Man, is it? We got enough rain up here now in this area where we've been playing around that I think the fire season's over for up in here. But
I don't know.
it would have to
Got
get
things
pretty warm and
damp by the
windy.
ranch. Yeah.
It'd have to get pretty warm and windy.
Mr. Verge, you talking the Brazilian forest management thing? Yeah. So Cal Fire is giving it the
Yeah.
Brazilian, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just let it burn. Just let it burn.
That's a new way of clearing things, huh? Oh. Ouch, ouch, ouch. Oh.
I just figured I'd just talk about that a little bit if anybody had any questions. There's some ways to reuse water and keep it to a limited amount of water, especially if you're in a desert situation where you're hauling water for your recovery system or something.
No, Argonaut. They still have some permitting requirements, but patented claims have much less requirements. For example, the Department of Environmental Quality would have some regulatory authority, but BLM would not, Forest Service would not,
No.
things like that.
It basically is only the Department of Environmental Quality here in Montana,
Yeah.
if you're on private land. There could be watershed issues as far as fisheries if you're on some streams like west of here on the western slope. There is some supposed trout streams that have bull trout.
Oh,
and if
no,
they
not
and if
bull
they
trout.
do, yeah, it turns into a real nightmare with fisheries. Beyond that, private land is actually fairly easy to go ahead and permit and do.
Yeah. Any other questions here? I'm kind of, for some reason, a little bit tired this week.
It's strictly your imagination, Bear.
Okay. She says my imagination. She's never
Because
wrong.
you haven't
Therefore,
been
it's my
drinking enough keto aid.
Okay.
Some patents do, Chris. Some don't. Yeah, the western slope cutthroat trout's now protected somewhat too, so that can be fisheries can be an issue.
Man.
So you got to deal with whatever, work with them on that. So some streams you may not be able to mine within 10 feet of the stream, or it depends on too what was written into the patent. I know, like on Bryce's patent, I think he had the rights to do what he wanted to do with the drainage as far as ingress and egress with water. And some patents, when they were originally patented, gave you those rights, which can't be taken away. But they'll make you build a stream bed and make sure that it's armored correctly and everything before you move the water to mine, the drainage.
Oh. Chris, your opinion. Are they dissolving the copper from underneath the gold, or are they trying to convert the gold into gold chloride?
Poorly.
Poorly.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, he's the chemist. He's pretty
Yeah,
smart.
I would agree with poorly.
Yeah, this Eco Goldex, it seems to do a pretty good job of dissolving this stuff.
Well, that's kind of what the guy designed it initially for, wasn't it?
So this particular
It's
formulation
salvage-
is
it's salvaging.
so much rain on the East Coast, broken all records ever kept.
Huh.
I presume that's in Australia, maybe?
No, northern East Coast. Robert's up in what, New Hampshire? Or,
I haven't heard anything about that. Are you talking the United States
Yeah,
East Coast?
yeah, Nova Scotia and all that.
I
They
didn't
had a lot-
see
I
anything
believe
on the
they had a
news.
lot of rain.
Let's see.
Are you once again assuming that the news actually tells you anything?
Well,
useful?
Breitbart is pretty limited, and I don't want to do Fox because they ticked me off. And the other ones are just a bunch of liars. So let's see what's happening. See if we can get anything there. With the patented claims, is that info in the county records? Robert MacGyver says yes. What mapping companies would you recommend for typos in mineral?
Topos.
Topos. Okay. That makes sense.
All of them will have typos. A few have topos.
Topos, yeah.
U.S. Geological Survey does good topos.
Yeah, you can also have places that'll print up a custom topo. Places like
Yeah, I'm not
Sportsman's Warehouse will usually have them. Okay, apparently someone in New Hampshire also says it's damp over there. It's global warming.
Like climate change, yeah, whatever.
Well, it's so frustrating getting something that appears to be reliable information nowadays. I have to be careful here, of course, but in the realm of analyzing disease patterns and stuff recently, it seems like it hasn't been done very scientifically. And it makes me wonder if one was truly concerned about, fighting a disease, wouldn't one wish to get the most accurate, comprehensive, and detailed information as possible so that one could determine what works, what doesn't, and this, that, and the other? And yet there seems to be huge gaps in the data collection itself. And that's very concerning to me. We have a thing that happens in the mining business where if somebody wants to sell a claim, they will go out there and find some good spots to take samples and only sample those good spots, cherry pick them as you will, and then stop gathering data because it could falsify their presentation. As long as they don't have the information on the 99.99% that doesn't look like high-grade little ore pockets an inch wide, they can legally say, I don't know, I took 3 samples, that's what I got. And the average of those samples was 1.6 ounces per ton, And so I'm always suspicious when somebody is trying to promote something but is not doing a reasonably good job of gathering the information to their level of competence. Now, obviously, somebody who's not an expert is not going to do nearly as good a job as someone who's a professional and does it all the time. But when you have people who are supposedly experts and supposedly know all this stuff and supposedly do it all the time, I don't think there's any really good excuse for having bad data. And, just look out there for the information on certain things. There were 17 states that are refusing to give out certain information that is just basic stuff on the intervention that is occurring and the success or failure of that intervention. Just the raw data, they're refusing to give it out. Now, that to me is extraordinarily suspicious, that somebody has an ulterior motive of some sort, that the data doesn't support their motive. That's why they don't want to give out the data. I can't make any specific comments, or I risk, possibly offending someone and getting my channel shut down, which would be a bad thing. But
you can keep an eye on Conservative Treehouse because they report this stuff.
Yeah. And so, as I say, to me, my natural skeptical inquirer mode that always comes into a property or whatever, you're looking for what data is available, what type of data is it, does it appear to have been massaged or cherry picked, how is it being presented, what kind of qualifiers, probably, possibly, historically, things like this don't necessarily apply to the current situation. And so when I see weird looking data, one would think that at this point in time, you should be able to ask a lot of very pointed questions and get answers to decimal points. And that does not appear to be the case. And that is concerning to me. For example, does anyone out there know the efficacy of cloth masks against airborne viruses?
There have been 7 or 8 studies.
Yeah.
Recently?
Over the year of the lockdown 1.0.
And what are the answers of those studies? Last I heard
But
it
they
was...
ain't worth jack shit.
Yeah, I heard it was
Neither are the
equivocal.
little paper disposable masks that say right on the package that they don't do anything.
There's answers, people, and do your homework and look.
Yeah. We're all liberals here. We believe in liberty, so I guess we're liberals, yes. Yes, we would want to claim to be liberals. Certainly.
I am to the right of libertarian.
Yeah.
I am to the right of our founders.
Okay, little one.
I'm also off camera.
Yeah, they can hear you. Apparently, there's another TV going on in the background. You may hear the audio from time to time. Somebody seems to be very excited about something and keeps raising their voice. It has nothing to do with the channel content. So, anyhow, as I say, that's because of my training in the this particular business. I get an almost automatic, okay, somebody's trying to pull the wool over my eyes here reaction when certain things happen. And I've just been getting that very, very frequently here, and along with, in many cases, actual video proof that someone is not trustworthy. And so I'm honestly and sincerely very concerned and perplexed about exactly what's going on. And I'm deeply concerned that when I find out what's been going on, I will be very upset. And we'll just have to see how it turns out. But the lack of balance in things, for example, I know two people that I know have had COVID. Okay. And this is just anecdotal evidence out there, but this is the truth. Both of them have been vaccinated since then for COVID. Now, it doesn't make any sense why you would vaccinate someone who's had COVID anywhere near the time they had the COVID, because the natural immunity is as good or better than the vaccine immunity. So why are they wasting doses on people who don't need it at all? You know, remember how you used to hear about face masks not required for people who've had vaccine or previously they had COVID, and now it's like just the vaccine, and then it's like face masks are even needed for people with vaccine. Very, very confusing. And so I would suggest that everyone do their best to research it carefully and thoroughly themselves and try and predict from there. But I'm concerned about supply chains. I think that potentially bodes very well for the price of precious metals. And political instability has historically been good for the price of gold. Inflation has historically been good for the price of gold. And say all this looks good for the price of gold, not necessarily so good for anyone else.
No, it might not be good for any of us.
Yeah. And so I think we should all have our heads on our swivel and our doubter tuned up to maximum. Just not sure what's going on here, but I've been around 65 years and it's just weird right now. Very, very weird.
When in doubt, buy toilet paper.
Apparently that person on the other TV is getting excited about something again. But yeah.
That's a very inoffensive statement.
It's almost like she can hear me.
I don't think even YouTube would have a problem with that statement.
I would go bet on it.
But anyhow, and so let's say I think everyone should use maximum reasonable precautions to facilitate stability and safety in their particular lives and that around them. Develop your networks and people you are confident you can trust. Another thing that something occurred this week which brought up a point that applies generally. As gold miners, we often forget how emotional gold miner sounds to other people. So it's a good idea to be very circumspect in the details you give out about any of the stuff you're actually doing. I remember when I was at ChemGold, mind you, we were 20 miles out of town in the middle of the desert. And we made 3,000 ounces of gold a month. So 3,000 times that time called 500 an ounce. So roughly about $1.5 million a month in gold that was on site. Now, one of the things we did to mitigate that risk was, but when it got turned into doré bars, it immediately left the mine site. Okay, so when you're discussing details, with respect to that, we never say how much we were making, how we get by. You know, it seems to be paying the bills, that sort of thing. Never any details of
How much?
when
No.
stuff was recovered or anything like that.
Yep.
And
Gosh, the first few years, Keith, I was mining. If people asked me what I was doing up there, I told them I was doing reclamation, and they went, "Oh yeah, I know other guys who do that." And that was the last question they asked me, and I was like, "Man, that's a good answer," you know, because it's none of their business what I'm doing up there,
yeah,
you know.
especially in your case where there's only
Well, yeah,
one person.
you're right. I was up there a lot by myself originally, and that was not always a good thing.
Yeah, we sometimes had
But
as few as a half a dozen people.
right? But if
But
they
that's
knew,
a lot different.
if they knew you were pouring Dore bars up there, I mean, what's it going to take that away from you? Not much.
Well, Justin, all you have to do to be a prospector is look.
Yeah, start looking.
Start looking for some gold.
Learning. You're right here. You're learning. You're a prospector.
He's a
already.
prospective
You're a
prospector.
Yeah, there we go.
But yeah, that's it. And a prospector is someone who's basically looking and or doing it on a hobby scale. They're doing it more for the fun than anything else. You have a professional prospector or a miner who's doing it for the money aspect. Now, I suspect that this character over here really likes the looking part of it.
Oh, I love the hunt. I mean, I love the treasure hunt and trying to, you know, it's all of it. It's the historical data, to hunting that and finding information, and then going into the field and trying to understand what they did, maybe try to figure out why did they do what they did, as well as trying to figure out, you know, strike distances and things that fit for a bigger mining operation. So that's really the things that I love to do. I like to mine too, don't get me wrong, but right now it's mainly working on things that are somebody big would like to look at.
I think I would classify you as a professional prospector.
Pretty much. That's
with miner as a secondary.
right.
I, on the other hand, like the challenge of the actual mining, the taking the piece of property, the situation, turning it into a profitable going concern.
Correct.
That's the challenge I find most interesting. It's more the extractive metallurgy and the
Right. Exactly what you're
the
doing.
physical mining part of it. How do you get the rock out of it? How do you get the gold out of the rock? And that's my idiosyncrasy.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll find in this general group of people have their, you know, little thing. Like some people like placer gold. Some people like, I break for bedrock. They like metal detecting nuggets in the desert, you know? Molybdenum. Why do the old timers keep talking about molybdenum?
Well,
there a time in
it's an
sight?
indicator for some possible good gold is one. But molybdenum, actually, right now, you could look it up. It's actually fairly high per ton right now.
Yeah, so I'm not that familiar with it as an indicator.
Because like our copper mine has a fairly high value of moly, and that's one of the things that they're interested in. Because it's easy to extract, evidently, when they go through a flotation process.
Molybdenum disulfide floats.
Yep, it's fairly
well.
easy to get.
Yeah.
Exactly, Chris. It's fairly, valuable by itself, but when it's with gold, silver, copper, scheelite, some of the tungsten, when there's other things in the ore, suddenly that ore goes from, let's just say, a couple $100 a ton ore, it could be worth tens of thousands of dollars worth of value in that ore.
Yes, molybdenum disulfide is in fact an additive to grease for extreme pressure stuff.
Correct.
The other thing is all these minerals, the price goes in cycles depending upon a variety of things. For example, in World War II, your war materials, your steel, your copper, lead, zinc, tungsten,
Nickel. That's why if you ever get nickels from 1942 to 1944,
Yeah, they
they
had
were made of
steel.
silver.
And so whenever a commodity is up, like right now, lithium would be in an upswing. Everyone's like looking for lithium.
Right? But it's
So depending upon when and where you are reading the information from, it might, molybdenum might be really a big deal, or something else might be. It may not be a more general indicator.
well, right. In a certain gold complexes, or possibly silver even, you can have high moly areas, and they used it as an indicator originally. I don't know that they realized the value as a lubricant and some of the drugs that moly's used in a lot of things.
Well, it's also used in alloying steels
Yep.
for special alloy
Yep.
steels.
But it was used as an indicator. So when you're seeing that in those old reports, it was used as an indicator to basically say there was enough geologic activity in this area. We've got some high moly readings, so it could very well be an area to look for veining or structures, faults, or whatever that could have gold or silver or copper.
Now, Chris says that cadmium and tellurium may be coming back. I presume that's certain electronic devices,
Probably.
would be my guess. All right. A RAS for 2 to 30 packs of 3-ply sharp. Well, you're welcome, Game Day. Game Dev, Gary. Happy to help. If you ever have any questions.
If he's an actual game dev,
The voice is speaking again, Game Dev. What?
if he's an actual game dev, we have a game. Remember?
Yeah, that's right. Eva has an idea for an interesting game. Chris thought it might be interesting too. If you're curious to see what her idea is, just email me at hardrocku@outlook.com. I'm pretty sure she doesn't want any money for it. She just wants to see it happen. Okay. She thinks it would be a fun game. I have no opinion. I'm not a gamer.
I don't necessarily want money, but I would accept payment in game meat or keto products.
Yeah.
So everything has its, he says, awesome, will do.
Yeah.
Okay. Everything, it all goes in cycles. Sometimes just boom, like this, like uranium, is really, really pushed for a couple decades. And then when's the last time you heard of someone looking for uranium?
Well, lately they have been again. I guess the price has come up some.
Yeah, but it's still
But
not.
they're doing it different. They're mining it different than they did back then too.
Yeah, it's not the kind of push. My dad, when he got out of the Army after World War II, Corps of Engineers, of course. Thank you, Mr. Lodak. He started working. He went back to college, finished his doctorate, and then that's where he met my mom. And then went to work for the Atomic Energy Commission, looking for uranium around Four Corners. That's why I was born in Grand Junction, Colorado. Smoking, you probably did something bad in a previous life.
Yeah.
That's all I can say.
Payback or something.
But I mean, the government was just going out there putting forth a huge effort to find it and basically turn it over to private companies. They just wanted to help everyone else find the stuff because they wanted it. They weren't looking to mine it themselves. So that's one of those things that, at the time everyone was looking for uranium. And then the price dropped and nobody's looking for uranium anymore, except big companies that can make a lot of it. because the only people that can really use uranium are governments, because you have to enrich it. And that takes huge resources and is extremely tightly controlled. Governments do not like to let anyone else enrich uranium. I'm not exactly sure why that is, but I'm sure there's a good reason for it. And so that's a classic case of a boom-bust cycle, but everything tends to go through these boom-bust cycles. In the 80s, we had a big gold mining boom.
Mining has always been cyclical.
Mhm.
Going back historically, thousands of years, it's been it's had its ups, and it'll be there for 50 years and it'll disappear for 50 years.
Yeah, you have to be nimble. The head of, I'm not sure exactly what it was, mining. It was Dr. Srini Raghavan at University of Arizona. I talked to him once and said, I wanted to learn extractive metallurgy to be basically milling. And he says, no, you don't want a degree in extractive metallurgy. And I said, well, why not? He says, because the business is so cyclical. About the time you get out of college, it'll probably be in a down cycle. You won't be able to get a job for 10 or 20 years. So what you want is a degree in material science with a heavy grounding in extractive metallurgy. And that way, if the market for extractive metallurgists isn't there, you can get a job working almost anywhere. Sand and gravel plant, steel plant.
Yeah, plastics plant.
Yeah, anything like that.
That's true.
So it's best to get a general degree with a specific grounding when you're in a highly cyclical industry. Now, if you're in something like semiconductors, electronics or whatever, that's been just growing, it's still one of those things that you may want to consider. My nephew, he wanted to be a bigwig in a big company. I mean, that was his basic goal, to be management in a large Fortune 500 company. I think he's changed that a little bit now, but that was his goal. And he went to the university. And at the time, if you wanted to be hired in business for big bucks right out of school, you needed to have supply chain management. That was the big thing. So he switched his major from business administration to supply chain management. And it's worked out fairly well for him. But that's what I mean by being nimble, is you want to see where the markets are going, et cetera, and then set yourself up for the future. And the more versatile you can be, the better. That's one of those things where you can, get a job with this or that or this or that or the other. It's obviously a lot better if you can fix anything with pistons than if all you can fix is Audis. If you can say, well, I can fix an Audi, but nothing else, or you go to a shop and say, I can fix anything that burns gasoline or diesel, which one do you think you're most likely to get the job at? And so that's always a good general principle. Make yourself as versatile as possible. I can do construction, lots of different construction. As a matter of fact, Wednesday I got a job to do in town here, just a little floor repair thing. And so there's always something you can do, somebody who can use you, and that's a good thing.
I think, as you said, talking about cyclical mining, though, I think we're coming into a time period that we are going to see mining come back, be revitalized to a certain extent, especially
Gold mining.
Well, I think even more than gold, honestly, at some point.
Well,
because
it depends on the economy.
We've let our iron ore slide in this country. We have no steel mills virtually left. I mean,
I would agree with that.
We've left a lot of things go overseas that at some point, In order to get back to a decent economy, we have to bring some of that back here, that we can have manufacturing on our shore here and control the things that we're buying, that know that we can order them or go down to the hardware store and get them. Because in the near future here, at the rate things are coming out of China right now and the delays, eventually that hardware store and that auto parts store are going to be empty. And we're going to pay for that.
Yes.
So I think, looking at mining, there's some cyclical part that we're just starting to come back into. Things eventually are going to happen here. We have to see political change. We have to see some things happen for that all to come about. But I think inevitably we're going to see the demand say that, you know what, we need these resources and we need to do it right here in our own yard.
I agree. Self-sufficiency is very good. Mr. Virtue, the government is thinking of mining the moon for helium-3 to power fusion reactors, which don't exist yet. If they come up with something that works, helium-3 may be one of the fuels they need. But it's kind of like several years ago, they had a requirement that the oil companies blend cellulosic ethanol into their gasoline.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the problem is nobody makes cellulosic ethanol. As far as I know, they still don't make any significant amount of it. The idea was somebody would come up with a method of turning cellulose into ethanol.
Right.
And so Congress mandated, in order to encourage the industry, they mandated that by a certain date, you either do that or you get fined. The problem was, come that certain date, there wasn't anything to blend, so everyone was just getting fined for not using a product that didn't exist. Isn't that wonderful?
Yeah, typical government.
Yep. Well, Glenn, there are resources that are untapped at the current time.
Correct.
And so they're either unlocated or, as Chris says, not commercially viable at current prices and technology. Open pit heap leaching changed a lot of, played out gold mines into big, giant, profitable ventures. As time goes on, people will generally come up with a way to make it happen. And sometimes that means utilizing something that was trash before it could. I don't know if you're aware of this, but plastics were invented to get rid of the waste product that you got when you refined
Cracked gasoline
petroleum for the other products, like for gasoline, diesel fuel, and stuff like that. You wound up with this nasty crap that was just horrible to get rid of. And I don't know, the head of somebody, it might have been Chevron, basically told his researcher, find up something useful to do with this so we can, we don't have to pay to get rid of it. And he invented plastics. So, yeah. I would suggest, Justin, SpaceX is your best bet at this point.
Yeah, get to know Elon.
If you want to be a moon miner, yeah, I'd say SpaceX has the track record of making things happen that nobody else is even thinking about doing. And if they do think about doing it, they think it's impossible until SpaceX does it. It is amazing what they do. They do have some interesting incidents along the way. Yep.
That's true, Glenn.
Yeah, that, and to get the technology to do what you want at a profitable price under the current existing conditions.
It's got to be on a scale that can be done. I mean, politically, what they're talking with solar panels and wind turbines and electric cars, if you look at the amount of mining it's going to take to get to the numbers they want by 2035, it's impossible. It can't be done. And nobody's looking at that. You can dream, all you want, and you'd have your phony reality, but there's no way we could produce what it's going to take to even do that. Not in that short period of time.
I would agree. Mr. Virtue, you bring up an interesting point. Working on the moon is a one-way ticket. I'm sure he. I don't know if you're aware of this, but if you're in low gravity, your body gets weak.
Yeah.
Okay. So my question is, if you were on the moon, where you do have some gravity, at least not a microgravity environment, and you were working very hard, kind of like what I was doing, but just much bigger shovel and this and that and the other, I wonder how well that would mitigate the effects of the lower gravity. I know they're also working on some kind of biological interventions, like some kind of medication or something that tries to tell your body it's actually in a high gravity environment, but I don't know how well that's going to work. Your body has just so many feedback systems that are balanced to keep it working right. And when you change something like gravity, you change a lot of those. So I don't know how well a medication methodology would deal with that. How would you run an air drill off solar power? You run an electric drill, because solar power is extremely intense and highly reliable up there. Yeah, Wolfman, your body it senses what's happening to it and then tries to change things to keep its condition steady. When you change something as basic as gravity, it just throws all kinds of stuff off. Like your bones. Did you know this? If your bones flex, they generate electricity.
No, I didn't know that.
Did you know when your bones generate electricity, it increases the amount of calcium that's deposited? So as it flexes, it's generating the electricity to make it stiffer.
Stronger. Yeah.
We
And once
are
it gets stiff
bioelectric
enough,
beings.
it stops generating more. It's a feedback mechanism that as you need more, it gets more. And when you don't need more, it stops. This is why when you're in microgravity and you're not doing that, you're losing calcium out of your bones because they're not flexing. They're not being stressed.
Yeah, we're bioelectric beings.
That's why when you have these guys come down from space after hundreds of days, they're in stretchers. They can't get up.
Huh.
Yeah. And they're exercising every day too. They're doing everything they can to resist that. They'll like have a treadmill where they got bungee cords holding them down to the treadmill and doing this and things like that, because that impact on your legs flexes your bones a little bit, which keeps the calcium up.
You can see it in my jaw because on the side that doesn't have teeth, it is visibly thinner. That's why my face looks lopsided.
Huh. That makes sense. So your body is designed to resist change. And by that, I mean actually do what it takes to keep that change from affecting it. It's like, how do you build muscles? Pick up heavy weights because it's okay. I need to be able to do this. And I mean, just this week, I spent 5 days swinging a mattock, shovel and everything, and I can feel the difference.
Oh yeah. Yeah, every day I feel better. Actually, I always did. The harder I work, the better I feel.
Yeah, I'm kind of that way too.
You know, your body, I don't know, gets rid of the toxins or whatever, and you just feel better.
Well, again, it says I need to be strong, so it takes the resources
If you can get
and
over
applies them, because your body is not designed or not evolved to operate in a plethora of resources. Up to the last century, how many people had plenty of everything?
Yeah.
Nobody.
Nobody. Yeah.
You know, maybe, you know, the 1% would be, you know, so the human body has been evolved to deal with shortages, with long periods without
Food,
this and that. So it tries to be very efficient with its resources. And so that, not quite, but David, they found out many years ago that if you had like a fracture, if they put electrical coils in the cast and induced a current in the bone, you would heal much faster. And that was like 20 years ago. So if you have either someone like a professional football player to whom that injury is a lot of money, and the faster it can get better, it's important, they will apply that. if you have somebody who has trouble with his bones healing, they may do that. They don't do it routinely because your body usually does a pretty good job of itself, and a cast is pretty simple and cheap. But yeah, I say they induce that current in the bone. It will put on calcium a lot faster. And I would imagine as an adjunct, they also supplement you with extra calcium.
Right.
But yeah, our bodies were
And
designed to be
magnesium.
efficient.
Yeah.
Calcium and magnesium have to be in ratio, otherwise you
Right.
get kidney stones.
Right. You go
Yeah.
the other way.
All the money spent on time, we don't know how to cure. Yeah. I say there's just a lot of things where, our body is designed to be an upper Paleolithic hunter-gatherer. And that means exert yourself, go without food for periods of time, use it as efficiently as possible when you do have it, add weight when you have extra resources, so that when you have less resources, you lose weight, and it doesn't hurt you, that sort of thing. And that's why when you go out there and you work, you feel better because your body is doing what it's designed to do. Sitting around in front of this computer is hard on me.
Yeah, it's hard on everybody.
Yeah, it just doesn't work too well. And so that's why exercise makes you healthy. Well, yeah, it does, because you're designed to exercise. Like your car. Somebody going, you rest, you rust. What happens if you park a car for 2 months? Is that good on it?
Nope.
No. It'd be much better to take it out every day and drive a little bit.
Yep. That's true.
Because it's designed to have its lubricant circulate, come up to temperature and things like that.
Well, I don't know what subjects we haven't covered tonight.
So anyhow, but that's why, yeah. Well, a number of you suggested that heavy equipment, or maybe light equipment, might have made my job easier out there at the leach pad. I didn't do it, even though it was offered. Should I need it? First of all, it would have been excess money and hassle. You got to go get it, haul it, use it.
Yeah.
Now you're in a hurry to get it back.
Yeah.
Blah blah blah. But I was just moving such thin amounts that it's actually not what equipment is designed to do. Equipment's not designed to shave 2 inches off something unless you got a road grader. And road graders aren't designed to work for 20 feet.
Yeah, a little area. No,
Yeah. I've done that with areas twice the size of a football field, and the grader makes perfect sense. It does it real well. You throw those berms up, then you come along and cut the ditch.
Well, there's 2 ways to look at it. You can, go get a skid loader and do it in an hour. And you got paid for an hour. Somebody else gets the money for the skid loader if you're renting it. Or you can spend, like you did, 4 days, whatever, doesn't matter. And you could get in a couple hours here and there, and you're actually getting paid a little to do something instead of sit here.
You saw what I did.
Yeah, I know.
And you're familiar with how long would it have taken to have done that with a skid loader?
I don't know if it wouldn't have taken long at all. The
To
problem
that
is you
precision.
still, then you got to sit there and rake it all out anyway. So you might, no, I agree. Doing it, if it was a big, huge pad you were doing, equipment.
Oh, yeah, great.
To do what you were doing, a little bit of exercise did not hurt you.
Well, and another thing too is by carving it by hand, I lost no compaction in the pad.
Right.
And so,
you didn't overcut it.
How would
have
you
to regrade
compact
it.
something like that with a skid loader? It doesn't weigh enough.
Oh yeah, you
I mean,
can wheel pack. You believe it or not, you can wheel pack with the machine pretty good. But
we used to wheel pack with 75-ton haul trucks to 100 tons.
Yeah.
And that'll get you some decent compaction. Yep.
The question is, do you need more compaction as your pad gets larger or not?
It depends on how much you're stacking on top of it. In our case, we're only putting a few feet on top of it, so there's very little loading. When you're stacking 60 or 80 feet of rock on top of it, it better not shift very much or that liner's going to get torn. Did you see the Jackpot Joe Lead Mine video?
No.
Not to my knowledge, smoking.
No lead video. I'll have to look that one up.
But that's one reason. It was such a small job that the additional assistance of equipment would have been very modest. I mean, also you're going to disturb a larger area. You know, in my case, you can go 12 inches past it, and all you're going to see is some rocks. You know, because it didn't. You know, my feet don't need to turn around on stuff or
Right.
whatever. Yeah.
Argonaut, most of the time, what they'll do on 1 ounce or maybe even a couple ounces is pay you 85% a spot, and they'll take their chances that it's not worse than that. Some guys will do 80%, so you got to be a little careful.
Oh, I think in that case, maybe I have seen smoking. That's where you were at the lead range, the gun range, getting the bullets out with your rather fancy contraption. It was somewhat of a Rube Goldberg device, but seemed to be working pretty good. By the way, Mr. Virtue, that's why they call you Mr. Virtue. Okay. Yeah, Kevin, I say that's what it seemed like to me. Now, if I was going to build one, 50-foot square, yeah, I probably would have said, yeah, give me the Bobcat, because that would have gotten quite tedious. But for a 20 by 30 foot area, it just seemed to make more sense to do it myself. Okay, Badruddin, have a good day.
Yeah. Thanks for being here.
Hopefully I'll have some interesting recovery stuff next week in terms of actually maybe some gold. We have an oxyacetylene torch over here, and I got some borax. So we might be able to make it happen. We'll have to see. I like that idea of Chris's of actually burning the steel.
That might be the way to
If you
go.
heat it in an oxygen-rich environment, that
Yep.
might work pretty
And
good.
then smelt it.
Yeah. Anyhow,
That might be the simplest way to do it.
well, most of those fluxes will dissolve steel to some
Oh, yeah.
extent
Oh,
too.
yeah.
As a matter of fact,
No,
you use it.
I'd put
at
nails
times.
in before
Yeah.
when I was melting. Put a little iron in to get it to work right.
Do you have any Chapman flux?
I do.
You do?
I do.
Okay.
I think I have some borax too.
Yeah, borax is easy to get. You can get it at the grocery
I've
store.
got another bag of Chapman Flux, I think.
Yep.
I haven't smelted any for a while, any gold for a while.
Yeah. You'd have to make us a bed to smelt it up. By the way, did you know you can use Portland cement as a cupel?
Really?
Yeah, it'll do the same thing as a cupel, at least according to Mount Maker Mining. And I saw the videos.
If you use the fire brick cement, it should, because it's light.
No, just put regular Portland cement.
Really?
Yeah,
See,
because what you want something that'll absorb the oxides and repel the metal,
Okay.
and that's what he used. Yeah, see, Chris says just flux it as it is.
Huh.
Just throw it all in there. Yeah, that might work out really well, Chris, especially for the very small quantities that I'm doing right now. With 100 pounds, I should be getting like half a gram. 100 pounds of ore should give me about a half a gram. You know? All right, game day, Gary. Calcium as opposed to calcium. What is Portland cement? I don't know the chemical formula for that, but anyhow. So, any other questions here?
Yeah.
It's a little bit early, but I'm getting tired. I got work to do. Oh my
More
goodness. Now I got to see my list.
Yep.
Yep. And that doesn't include go out to the ranch, build the shelf, paint the shelf, bring in the power, hang the light, set up the electrolytic cell.
Yeah, that'll go fast.
Yeah. Well, with Eva's health condition. We don't want to be out of cell phone range before 3 in the afternoon, because in case the doctor in Missoula calls and says we
Right.
got a cancellation.
Yeah.
So typically what we do is I'll go buy stuff in the morning. Like I need stuff for out.
Run around.
I'll go do that, etc. We'll go do some grocery shopping, or today it was laundry and everything. And then Eva can also do her running around snapping pictures of the barcodes and stuff. And being an old geezer, I'll quite often take a nap in the afternoon, because when I'm not doing anything, my body says, why are
Nap
you
time.
not resting?
Yeah.
You know?
Rest when you can.
So I'll often take a nap in the afternoon, then head on out there. Okay. I probably will, Chris, but I still got to get everything set up out there for what needs to be done. Also, I'll have to check and see what the actual power demand of the power supply is. I don't suppose it's going to be enough to even matter on the solar system out there. Yeah. As I say, I'm considering that. We'll see. Once I get things set up out there and see how things are running, then I'll kind of decide what to do. But I got another batch to throw in that cement mixer. I got more stuff to mill up there. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, Chris. I think that the power supply is going to be so small we can just leave it on out there. But I'd have to set up a recirculation pump, which is not a bad idea, so that you have a fairly decent sized reservoir, and it can just recirculate through the cell, or have 2 reservoirs and it runs from one to the other and then reverses the other way. I don't know. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Less than 100 watts. But we'll see. I got lots and lots of stuff to do this week, and no doubt I'm going to be cursing a fair amount from time to time. Eva can report on that if you wish. But yeah, got a lot to do, a lot of interesting things. Any other questions? Oh my goodness. Any other questions, anybody?
Yeah.
I don't see anything. So I guess we'll do the going once. Thank you, Terry.
Yeah. Thanks everybody for being here tonight again.
Good night, everybody.
Going twice. Okay, Chris. Good night, Jason. And yeah, I may call you on some stuff vis-a-vis Eva. Nothing urgent or whatever, just kind of some advice on a few things. Jason's got medical credentials.
He got a magic piece of paper.
Yeah. All righty, everybody. We're gonna call it a night then. And everybody, happy prospecting and keep it safe out there. And hopefully we'll have some more fun stuff for you next week.